225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It does feel like a bit of a bonus Olympics. You know, I didn't necessarily believe I'd be still competing at 39, but obviously still able to do it. So looking forward to going into my last games, my 5th one, and give it my all once more for our nation.
What is it feels it more than anything else? I mean, imagine when I watch slalom, I'm thinking of the knees. Is that the thing? Because especially being the age or as young as you are, is that the thing that usually goes? Because everything looks pretty good at the moment, Dave.
No, I think it's more my hairline than anything. You know, the stress
is it the worry? Is that what it is?
On the old scalp. No, very fortunate that my body's really good. Sit here with no pain, so that's why I can still do it. That's why I can still train hard. And yeah, the mental side of it's tough, being away from the family, but otherwise, all good.
It's a real, I would imagine, this is as someone who's dabbled in ski. I love watching skiing. Me and Eamon have spoken about it, from watching Ski Sunday with David Vine back in the day, and I remember Ingemar Stenmark, etc., doing the slalom. It's a very technical event, I would imagine. It's not like the downhill where you just fly down. It's both. You've got to cover both. So the adrenaline, I guess, can help, but being technical, you've got to be thinking the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what people sometimes don't understand is we don't get to practice the course before. We have half an hour to inspect. No, we have half an hour to inspect 75 gates. We have to memorize all the terrain, all the different obstacles along the way. And then we have to race it full gas from the first time we push out the gate. So it's very mentally demanding. And I call it the intensity of focus. That has to be absolutely on point.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a corking show ahead, and here's what's on today's menu. The Manchester United owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has caused a storm of controversy by claiming Britain is being colonised by immigrants.
The UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause. It'll cause. Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Keir Starmer has helped force a partial apology from Sir Jim for his offensive message, but does Sir Jim have a point? Is Britain being colonised, and should it be actually the Prime Minister and every other Prime Minister since Tony Blair who should be apologising to us?
A little while you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth. Literally, they put words in my mouth.
Game on, because Donald Trump's libel case against the BBC is to go to trial after a US judge rejected the BBC's attempt to delay the $10 billion lawsuit over claims of defamation. We'll have all the very latest reaction to this developing news story.
So we are growing our economy, we're bringing down the cost of living.
It's Richter Grins from Rachel Reeves. Dismal GDP figures out today show the UK economy is flatlining. Keir Starmer has claimed we're heading in the right direction, but a former Bank of England chief has claimed Britain is heading for the most dismal growth in 100 years. Worse, are we already in a recession? And the Green Party councillor has been slammed after she got her grandchildren to send Valentine's cards to unvetted male asylum seekers at the Crowber barracks. On today's show, I'll be joined by a local Tory MP who called the move disturbing and highly irresponsible.
Why can't we get people who are unemployed to be doing some litter picking in return for getting paid their unemployment benefit?
And a fed-up Brit on a one-man mission to clean up Britain has come up with a novel idea. Let's make people picking up benefits pick up litter and stop their dosh if they refuse. Now, common sense solution, or is it a load of old rubbish? Well, I'll be joined by John Reid, a.k.a. Mr. Clean Up Britain, in the studio today, and that's all coming up on an action-packed show. Is Britain being colonised? It certainly put the cat amongst the pigeon. The multi-billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe put those comments out yesterday, and since then, all we've had is people from the left clutching their pearls and saying, oh, we're offended by the word colonised. I'll tell you what's offensive, the fact that every single Prime Minister since Tony Blair onwards didn't listen to the electorate when we said, take back control of our borders. The country has changed, many think, beyond recognition. Perhaps many people believe it's too late to turn things around. So if somebody points it out and they're the problem, if you shoot the messenger and ignore the message, aren't you also a part of the problem? And does that include the Prime Minister Keir Starmer and all of the people before him, all the way through from Tony Blair, from Gordon Brown, from David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, perhaps you or the people who should apologise to the British people for not doing your job. Get in touch, GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. You can scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. Just after 3 o'clock, the top story: more than 50 immigration enforcement officers have carried out dawn raids across London today to dismantle a suspected migrant smuggling network. After a 5-month investigation, officers targeted 5 suspects at 4 addresses in Hounslow and Croydon. The group is believed to have operated internationally, allegedly offering Vietnamese migrants a so-called ferry-style service, concealing them in vehicles before boarding UK-bound ferries. It comes as 2025 became the busiest year on record for illegal working enforcement, with more than 9,000 arrests and nearly 13,000 raids nationwide. Well, as we were just hearing from Martin moments ago, the Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has now apologised after saying immigrants had colonised the UK. The billionaire said he was sorry his language had offended people in the UK and in Europe. Downing Street says it is right that he's apologised, describing the remarks as offensive and wrong. The killer of 12-year-old Leo Ross has been named after a court lifted an order protecting his anonymity. Cian Moulton, who was 14 at the time, stabbed Leo in the stomach as he walked home from school in Birmingham in 2025. Now aged 15, Moulton was sentenced to a minimum term of 13 years at Birmingham Crown Court after pleading guilty to murder last month. Leo's death shocked the local community and reignited concerns about knife crime. Well, breaking in the last half hour or so, a nursery worker described today by a judge as utterly wicked has been jailed for 18 years after sexually abusing children in his care. 45-year-old Vincent Chan admitted 56 offences, including making the most serious category of indecent images. He will also spend a further 8 years on extended licence. The court heard his victims ranged from just a 2-year-old child to a woman in her 70s. The Met Police called the case one of the most harrowing and complex investigations it has ever had to handle. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 pupils were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in northwest London. A court heard one child was stabbed in the neck in a classroom, suffering 3 wounds, a spinal fracture and injuries requiring surgery. The former pupil is also accused of attacking another child and spraying ant spray at a third. The hearing was told the defendant filmed the attack on his phone, but there is no suggestion it was uploaded online. Well, that comes as the government has today unveiled a new child knife crime plan following that school attack. Under the proposals, every child caught carrying a knife will be referred to youth justice services and could be forced into mentoring sessions. Knife carriers may also be required to remain in education or training in a bid to cut reoffending. The Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy spoke this afternoon.
Well, speaking to young people themselves, they've benefited from the turnaround scheme and the money that we put in to turn their lives around. Speaking to the young people, many of them are in the care system. But the important thing to do is if a young person is found carrying a knife, It's important that there's a referral from the police to youth services within a day, and that young person is being held, that there's action to deal with the causes that has led to that young person carrying a knife, so they do not go on to continue to do that.
David Lammy there speaking earlier. The UK economy grew just by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. The Office for National Statistics says December also saw growth of 0.1%, while November's figure has been revised down from 0.3 to 0.2%. Downing Street insists the government is confident the economy will turn a corner this year. Here's what Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, had to say.
Crucially, GDP per head of the population has increased over the last year after falling in the previous Parliament. The 6 cuts in interest rates means that people with a mortgage are going to be paying a bit less than they were before, around £1,400 less for somebody getting a new mortgage or renewing a mortgage. We're creating the conditions for growth by returning stability to the economy and bringing in investment. Is there more to do? Absolutely, but we've created the conditions for growth, and I'm confident that this will be the year that we see the results of that.
And breaking news in the last hour, a $10 billion defamation lawsuit brought by the US President Donald Trump against the BBC will go to trial in February 2027. Mr. Trump claims a 2024 Panorama documentary falsely edited his January the 6th speech to suggest he encouraged supporters to storm the Capitol. And he's called the broadcast false and defamatory. The BBC has sought to have the case dismissed, arguing the Florida court lacks jurisdiction and insisting it will vigorously defend the claim. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around half an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Martin.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Sam. Now, the billionaire businessman and the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he sparked a huge debate, having said that the UK had been colonised by immigrants.
You can't you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
What's wrong with that, you might say? Well, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, criticised the comments by posting on X, where he steamed in. He said, offensive and wrong. Britain is a proud, tolerant and diverse country. Jim Ratcliffe should apologise. Well, earlier on today, following the pressure from the Prime Minister and elsewhere, the Manchester United co-owner released a statement saying, I am sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe, but it is important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration. Well, hear to that, Sir Jim. To which the Prime Minister's spokesman said it is right that Sir Jim Ratcliffe apologised for his offensive and wrong comments. But was this not the same Prime Minister who previously said this?
The previous government were running an open borders experiment. We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
I'm sure if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Well, recently, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage just steamed into the row.
And then you look at parts of London, for example, where the road names, the underground signs, aren't just in English, they're in a foreign language as well. 1 million people living in this country don't speak any English at all. 4 million people living in this country barely speak passable English. And that's the point that he was making, that big areas of our towns and cities have been changed into something completely different to what they were.
And that clip finishes off there by saying Sir Jim Ratcliffe is right. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by GB News' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show. Well, what a stinker, what a furore we've got. And once again, the left clutching their pearls about offensive language. And I put it to you, this is a conversation they perpetually try and shut down in any way they can. It's been the same since way before the Brexit years. And surely it should be every Prime Minister, including Keir Starmer, from Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, all of them failed to control our borders That's why we're having these conversations now. The problem isn't Sir Jim Ratcliffe, it's them.
And the problem is migration too, by the way. That has been seen to overwhelm some areas in this country. Now, Number 10 say they don't mind having a debate about it. They object to the language, the issue of colonisation, the implication of whites and people from different colours and the empire. That's what they're talking about. But there's a history here of language on migration shaping the row, and then people being shut down when they try and raise it. Just very briefly, 2014, Michael Fallon, who was the Defence Secretary, warned of parts of the UK being swamped by migrant workers. Certain communities felt under siege. That was criticised as desperate and toxic. David Cameron was the Prime Minister at the time. He appeared to support the sentiment, said that Fallon was right to raise those concerns. Fallon then later apologised, said he'd misspoke and was careless with language. The following year, David Cameron, as Prime Minister, he talked about a swarm of migrants coming to the UK. The Refugee Council, irresponsible and dehumanising. So this story falls into that space. You saw Sir Keir Starmer saying Island of Strangers in May last year. I was in the room when he said it. He later said he wished he hadn't said it. He held the speech up to the light, recognising that language came from Enoch Powell in his 1969 Rivers of Blood speech. So all the time there's language here, but I think Jim Ratcliffe's apology is worth looking at. He says, I'm sorry that I've offended some people. I mean, I don't think he's really apologising. He's apologising for offending some people, but I think he stands by his remarks. He said you've got to have a conversation.
Since when has the Prime Minister been the language police? Since when is it up to him to tell people to apologise? Do you know what Keir Starmer's never apologised for? The industrial rape of white working-class girls. Never. He apologised to the Epstein victims last week. Never has he issued a personal apology to those thousands of girls who've been desecrated. And that's part of this same problem. We're locked down. There's no conversation allowed if you change the narrative, and they call you racist, they call you divisive, and many, many people watching this show who live in towns forever changed by uncontrolled immigration are saying, do you know what? Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's right.
Well, it's a row which Number 10, they would not admit this, but in my opinion, as a journalist covering politics for 2 decades now, it's a row which allows them to change the subject. Talk about a space where they're happy with in shutting down a migration issue. They've had a very difficult week. I should say to you, they couldn't say in our morning meeting with the PM spokesman today who the Cabinet Secretary is. That's the most senior official in government who sets the tone for the 400,000 civil servants. They couldn't say whether Chris Wormald was in post or not. Rumours he's going to be moved aside after the Chief of Staff went on Sunday and the Director of Communications Monday. Behind the scenes, it's chaotic in Number 10. This is a good way of talking about something else, but of course they would say they're reacting to the remarks probably in good faith.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. So let's go on to this conversation now. I'm delighted to have my next guest, Mr. former chairman of Manchester City and also the FA, and that's David Bernstein. David Bernstein, it's a pleasure to have your company. Sincerely, as a huge fan of your work at the FA, and I'm assuming you're thinking that we should keep the politics out of football, particularly in the case here of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments.
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. Yes, 2 thoughts. First of all, without going into the underlying issue, I don't want to discuss migration. You've got people better qualified than I to do that. But when I heard that expression yesterday, I did think to myself, oh, goodness, that's an ill-chosen thing to say. You sometimes hear something and you feel that wasn't very wise. So he has sort of apologised. It does seem a bit half-hearted, but he's been heavily criticised and has apologised. But yes, I want to pick up on the point that you just made, Martin. I'm of the view that leaders, let's keep this to sport for the moment and to football. The leaders in football, whether they be owners, chairmen, or particularly managers, need to be extremely careful about what they say, because when they speak, they're not speaking as individuals. They're speaking, in a sense, because of the platforms that they've got in their positions as with the clubs or whatever they're involved in. So it's very easy to cause division. And I think that we need to see people exercise a greater degree of self-discipline, a bit more control over what they say. And I do want to talk, because I think this was probably almost more newsworthy. It was yesterday's news about Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City manager. Great manager. I've been a City fan for 70 years and a chairman of the club as well. But I've been very saddened to see the statements he's been making about the Middle
Gaza.
East, about Gaza. Now, irrespective of one's views, pro, con, or whatever, the fact is that if he is supported by some, he's going to be opposed and upset other people. And I think as a manager of a football club like Manchester City, he's better to exercise greater discretion and just not get involved in that sort of controversy.
But the point is that politics is all over football now, and a lot of that is through choice. The Football Association was literally taking the knee to Black Lives Matter. Pride laces are everywhere, and you will note yourself, of course, being a Jewish man, that the FA decided not to allow the archers at Wembley to be lit up with the Israeli colours after the October the 7th pogrom, but they're quite happy to do other flags, and that's the point. Politics is in football, whether we like it or not. And I would point out to you, David, the Prime Minister didn't demand that Pep apologise over his comments about genocide by the Israelis, and that's my point. There's a selective outrage about politics, and we either do no politics, or I'm afraid we have to accept it's part of the game.
Well, yeah, I think the way you've analysed that is absolutely right. But there's no end to these things. You touched on taking the knee, wearing armbands. There's this thing at the moment in the Olympic Games about someone at one of the events wearing a helmet with, which the IOC have gone against. There's tattoos. There's just no end. The Wembley Arch, lighting the arch, as you said, if you light it for this, should you light it for that? And in the end, you're going to upset a lot of people as bound to happen. So my view is, actually, most fans, when they go to sport and go to football, why do they go? They go to get away from all this. They want to escape. They want to escape.
I absolutely agree. The last thing I want forcing down my throat on the terraces is wokery. Unfortunately, it seems to be a part of the modern game. David Bernstein, we have to leave it there. We run out of time. It really is an honour to get you on the show. Please come back on on the show.
I'll be delighted.
Today.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, mate. Let's get back to my next guest now. I'm joined by the former Labour advisor, Kevin Marr. Kevin, back to the politics there. We briefly had a sojourn into sport. Here's my point. Sir Keir Starmer isn't the language police. Sir Keir Starmer is a part of the problem. Just like every Prime Minister before him who refused to listen to the electorate. Isn't it a bit rich to call us all divisive, offensive and racist when we're complaining about something that, frankly, governments have failed on?
Well, what Jim Ratcliffe said, you take the gist of it. I mean, he's corrected his language, and as you say, there's a partial, at least, retraction from using the word colonisation. But the gist of it is the talk of the town. It's everybody's talking about this. It's the number one concern of voters in every opinion poll. People are onto their government, whether it's the red team or the blue team, over the past course of the last 30 or 30 odd years, where we've had very, very lax immigration policy. We've chosen not to control our borders. We've chosen not to cap migrants coming into Britain. And as a result of that, our society starts to change at the molecular level. And people are concerned about that. And people are saying, where is the consent? When was I asked? When was this put on the ballot paper? Clearly, plainly, if you vote for X party, it might be Boris under the Boris wave, or it might have been Tony Blair, with very lax on free movement of people inside the European Union. Where was the option on the ballot paper to say, I don't want this as my society? And for 30 years we've had this. And Brexit, classically, is a release valve. People saying, if we can get control of free movement of people and we can curtail that, that's a good thing. That's why I'll vote for Brexit. Yeah. And even after that, the political class does not listen. And this is a very ecumenical point. I would say this about Labour governments or Tory governments, frankly, that both of them have failed. And you end up with somebody like Jim Ratcliffe, who is in an interview talking about business and finance and the state of the economy, and kind of drifts into the issue of immigration, and then uses a choice of word which has obviously blown up and everybody's been having a go at him. But the gist of what he was saying in that interview is that we've got massive structural economic problems that immigration is frankly making worse. It's not making better. We don't need people coming here with their skills and talents. It's the vast number of people with no skills that have come here.
I need to ask you another question, and it's this: is the Labour Party caught in this diversity death roll? It has to complain about this because it needs the votes. Its votes is now inner city, metropolitan people who are all about diversity and open borders, or the ethnic minority vote. It has to complain. Meanwhile, it's letting down the vast majority of the electorate who don't have that mindset, and this tightrope act is going to get them annihilated.
Labour, the current Labour Party is betwixt and between these two positions, as you sum them up very well. The party traditionally of the white working class, but also now the party of a kind of urban hipster kind of class and cast of people as well. And the two instincts of these groups are out of kilter. And the party, depending on who you talk to, if you had Maurice Glassman on here, he would be talking about we've got to defend traditional working class values, control immigration and all the rest of it. If you had other people on, they would have a very different take on all this. So Labour ends up rolling around the deck here. At 1 minute, it wants to crack down on immigration. It wants to get tough. It wants to, Shabana Mahmood, and you played some of the clips there of Keir Starmer's speech from about 12 months ago, where he was being very, very tough on it. And then it rolls back the other way, where the party, the party is lambasting reform for being racist and far right. This use of the term far right is absolutely egregious, I think, in British politics, because the centre of gravity of British public opinion is we've had enough. We've had enough of this. We didn't want it. We didn't vote for it. We've not given consent. We've had enough of it. We want our government to do something about it. And the difficulty for Labour is depending who it is and on what day of the week it is, it's rolling this way or it's rolling that way, and it needs to come to a conclusion. And the best way of doing that in democratic politics is listen to voters, listen to what the electorate are saying, and try and do what they want you to do.
Yeah, the trouble is, Kevin, they don't. They just call them racist when they disagree, and
this is why it's so dangerous.
And I'm afraid if they don't change tune sharpish, they're going to be just off the edge of a cliff. Kevin Moore, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Appreciate your time. Now, still to come on GB News.
So we are growing our economy. We're bringing down the cost of living.
After Britain recorded dismal GDP growth, we'll be asking whether Labour really have a plan for growth and whether we may already actually be in a recession. And also next, Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC is back on. It's going to court. What on earth will all that mean for the great British licence payer? This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a $10 billion lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit, has been brought against the BBC by the US President Donald Trump and has been set for trial in February 2027. A Florida judge has ordered a short while ago. Panorama, of course, faced criticism last year over an episode back in 2024 for giving the impression that Mr. Trump had encouraged his supporters to storm the Capitol building in 2021, when, of course, it was nothing of the sort. Now, let's speak now with the media lawyer, Jonathan Code. Jonathan, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. So the case that was on and then off is now very much back on again. Tell us all about it.
Well, it wasn't strictly off, Martin. What if you'll forgive me, what happened was the BBC tried to head it off at the pass, perhaps is the right metaphor.
Yeah.
So they applied for what they call a motion to strike. We call it we call it more or less the same thing. And what that was an attempt to do was stop it going to trial. That was the whole point. Because the trial process, as I'll briefly explain, was going to be a nightmare for the BBC, a total nightmare, whether they won or lost. So what they did is they had made an application a motion to strike on the basis primarily that the programme wasn't transmitted in Florida, so that Florida didn't have the jurisdiction, but also on the issue of whether he suffered any real damage. Now, as part of that application, they also applied for a stay of what we call disclosure and what they call discovery. Now, the journey to a trial is very briefly this. Discovery, which is exchange of documents, then preparation of witness statements, then trial. Now, as I explained when the claim was first started to your colleagues at GB News, the discovery process itself is going to be a nightmare for the BBC, which is why they've tried to postpone it. And what the judge has said, yes, you can have your motion to strike. I've checked on an American website. He's not rejected the motion to strike. What he said is what you can't do is delay the process of discovery before there's a motion to strike. Now, sorry, Martin, ask away.
Yeah, I was about to say, so the interesting thing about this, I've always felt that it's not about winning and losing, it's about the flex, and it's also about the process being the punishment. The BBC's worst nightmare, Jonathan Code, would be the revelation, the transparency of every single piece of communication, every email, every WhatsApp between anybody on those shows to prove that there was any anti-Trump bias present whatsoever. And you can bet your bottom dollar, probably, if you're a betting man, there would be. Donald Trump has outfoxed them. And the prospect of the BBC getting a positive result in Florida, Trump Central, was always going to be a big ask. And Jonathan Code, well, I'm afraid they've come out looking rather embarrassed by this, haven't they?
Well, it's interesting the BBC have just declined to comment, which must mean they can't think of any good thing to say about it. But you're absolutely right, Martin. It's the process that's going to be disastrous. And leaving aside the cost of it, which will be astronomical, you're absolutely right that the BBC are now going to be hung by their feet by a bunch of very well-paid, angry and motivated Florida lawyers. And every single email, memo, minute of meeting, everything, and it won't just be to do with these programmes. I think they will say, no, it's got to be across the BBC, because the allegation is that the Panorama programme manifested bias on the part of the BBC. So they'll say we're going to have throughout the BBC for the relevant period, everything that's ever been said about Donald Trump. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I would venture a bet that someone's going to have said he's a terrible man, he's a maniac, you know, he's this, that, the other. And then from that point, the BBC is going to be on the back foot.
Yeah, and I think at that point, that is why, Jonathan Code, Donald Trump has played it this way, because the BBC will be choking on their lattes now. They'll be going, oh my gosh, we can't have all this in public. Why don't we just pay a few £100 million to make this all go away? And I think that's Donald Trump's tactics. He did it before with other broadcasters, and I think the BBC are going to end up on a back foot. Jonathan Code, it's always a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate your expertise. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cheers, mate. Now, lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including this.
So we are growing our economy. We're bringing down the cost of living.
Well, after Britain recorded dismal GDP growth today, we'll be asking whether Labour really have a plan for growth. And actually, the bigger question is this: are we already in a recession? But first, it's time for your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you from the newsroom at 3:30. The headlines: Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised after saying immigrants had colonised the UK. Downing Street says it's right that he said sorry, calling his remarks offensive and wrong. The killer of 12-year-old Leo Ross has been named after anonymity was lifted. Cian Moulton, now 15, was jailed for at least 13 years for stabbing Leo in Birmingham. A nursery worker described as utterly wicked has been jailed for 18 years for sexually abusing children in his care. Vincent Chan admitted 56 offences. Police have called the case harrowing and complex. More than 50 immigration enforcement officers have raided homes in Hounslow and Croydon in London, targeting a suspected international migrant smuggling gang. 5 people were arrested after a 5-month probe into what's described as ferry-style operations bringing Vietnamese migrants to the UK. And Donald Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit against the BBC will go to trial in February 2027. He claims a Panorama documentary falsely edited his January the 6th speech. The BBC, though, says it will defend the case. Those are the latest headlines. A full roundup with the news at 4.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours. And as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy. But much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow. Whereas in the south, it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills. And it could, for a time, even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine. Some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday. A widespread frost again. It could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. Will cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the A90 westbound at Myrakirk roundabout, restrictions remain after a road traffic collision. On the A19 northbound in North Tyneside, between the A1171 and the A1068, one lane is closed following a crash, with recovery expected after 4 o'clock. In Lincolnshire, the A46 southbound between the A57 and the A1434 is shut in both directions after an accident, easing after 5:30. And on the trains, Northern and TransPennine Express report major disruption between Manchester Piccadilly and Manchester Airport, plus delays between Wakefield Kirkgate and Sheffield. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now it's time now for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to win a luxury 10 grand holiday for two and 30 grand in tax-free moolah. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. You wouldn't need to treat yourself to a holiday, as we're also going to treat you to the perfect getaway too. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from, which means you could be exploring the wonders of Egypt on a Nile River cruise, or find yourself on a grand tour of Japan, in New Zealand, even enjoying the wonders of India. But you've got to be in it to win it.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. Now, new figures out today from the Office for National Statistics. They show the UK economy has grown by a measly 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. And take a listen to what Rachel Reeves had to say earlier.
Today show that the economy grew by 1.3% last year, a higher growth than the year before, and GDP per capita increased by 1% last year after falling in 5 years under the previous government. So we are growing our economy, we're bringing down the cost of living, £150 off of people's energy bills from April, freezing prescription charges and train fares, continuing with the bus fare cap, all of those putting the money in the pockets of ordinary working people so they've got more money to spend in their high streets, in their local area.
And hats off to our political correspondent, senior political correspondent there, Catherine Forster, who trusts me to fight like Billy-O to get a question out of Rachel Reeves earlier. And whilst Rachel Reeves celebrated the UK's position as the fastest growing economy in the G7, Kemi Badenoch criticised the overall subdued growth. OK, well, let's now speak with the independent statistician and the political commentator, Jamie Jenkins. Jamie, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. And apologies for the pregnant pause there. I was expecting Kemi Badenoch to home interview. Silly me. You've done some stats on this. You always do. You cut straight to the chase. And I want to ask you a straight question. All the gloss in the world from the Chancellor this morning. Actually, are we already in recession?
Well, so let's first explain what a recession is. What that normally is, Martin, is you get 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. So the GDP figures today, what they are is basically you add up all of the value of the goods and services in the economy, and that gives you the value of the economy. And so the headline figures have gone up in the last quarter by 0.1%, and they went up by 0.1% in the previous quarter. But at the time, this definition of a recession has kind of been in force for many, many decades. But when you've got significant immigration, which is what we've seen in recent years in the UK, much, much higher than what we had, say, during the 80s and the 1990s, that Probably a better measure, which Rachel Reeves, the clip you just presented there, talked about, was GDP per capita, or another way of thinking of it is GDP per head, per person. And if we look at those figures, Martin, what we've actually seen then is, if we look at the last 2 quarters, we've actually seen a decline of 0.1% in the quarter, basically ending in December, and a decline in the quarter before as well. So 2 consecutive declines in GDP per head technically means, if we look at it on a per person basis, yes, we are technically in a recession on that basis.
And we saw the leaked messages from Wes Streeting. This government has no growth strategy. Jamie, when you look at the figures before us today, do you think he's got a point?
Well, the reason we're in the problem and the pickle that we're currently in is because of the taxes that are going up. Again, the clip you shared there of Rachel Reeves talks about putting more money in people's pockets. Well, they're taxing people and taking money out of people's pockets. That has a detrimental impact on basically the spending. And the very poor economic figures that we are seeing, they're being propped up by government borrowing. We'll have new figures out next week on government borrowing. In the public sector, we're seeing the growth there in terms of jobs and pay. So that's unsustainable in the long term. And she champions the fact that interest rates are coming down. Well, I wouldn't put that down to government policy. Obviously, the Bank of England run the interest rates, but they're generally just following what's going on globally, looking at the US. And she talks about inflation and the cost of living is coming down. Well, we're above France, we're above Germany, we're above the US, we're above China. So there's not real, the shoots of recovery aren't there. The figures are looking pretty dire. And Martin, the problem we've got is, I'm coming on with you, every time we get these new set of economic figures, we've been talking for several months on this now. There's no turnaround happening. And I think I agree with Wes Streeting. There's no strategy. And I think the government's in paralysis mode at the moment, with all of the kind of the sleaze and the scandals and the misjudgments of Keir Starmer. So they're not even focusing on the economy at the moment. And that's ultimately what the public want to get fixed.
Jamie, when you delve into some other figures as well, there's some concerning trends around construction. Construction is down by 2.1%. That's the worst performance in 4 years. But I thought this was the government that said they were going to build, baby, build. Nothing's happening, mate.
No, and the good thing with construction, if we've got housing shortages and we need to basically get young people on the ladder, why the government doesn't start getting the construction sector going itself? Because if the government helps build things, it's an asset for the government as well, and it'll go on the balance sheet from that. And construction declining is in part because if the housing market is in kind of a bit of a slump, then construction will obviously have an impact there. Businesses are not investing, so there'll be an impact on construction there as well. So the figures today, Martin, they're not great. They're obviously pretty dire if you're looking at it from a GDP per head perspective. And I think that's pretty much the only commentator I can see at the moment who's really homing in on the fact that technically, if you're looking at it from that basis, we are in a recession. And we don't have too much doom and gloom, because you can talk yourself into worse and worse economic figures. But what the government needs to do to boost confidence is pretty much get taxes down. I think that's only going to happen when Starmer's gone. Reeves will go with her, and maybe a new broom of politicians coming in at the top of the Labour Party might reverse some of the things that have gone on.
And I wonder, actually, if all this uncontrolled immigration, which we were told would boost the economy, if the GDP per head is going down, perhaps that was an illusion all along. Jamie Jenkins, superb. Stats of the Nation is your Substack. Superb. Give it a follow, folks, who are watching at home. Thank you, Jamie. Always an absolute pleasure to have on the show. Thank you very much. Now, coming up next, Patrick Christys is on the ground in East Durham. He's on manoeuvres, hearing from locals about crime, jobs, and whether promises of regeneration will deliver. We'll be heading there to join Patrick Christys next. But meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, I wouldn't go to Durham. Here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow, and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And you see, I would have thought that the stammer business had gone away, right? But it hasn't gone away. It'll always be with you, but you control it very well. Indeed, we should point out that Gareth has his voice coach, Amy, in the studio today, here in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing, having a stammer. You know, unfortunately, there's no cure for it. But I'm part of a speech therapy programme called the Maguire Programme. Myself and my coach, Amy, is on the same programme, and we help each other. And we learn a new way of breathing, new way of speaking, and most importantly, a new way of tackling the mindsets which come with having a stammer, which is fear. This is my most fearful situation.
But my friend, when you get up on that stage and you put a microphone in your hand and you sing, are you worried about it then? Does it manifest itself then?
No, I mean, every time I sing, or, you know, I've done big West End shows where I've had to act and, you know, read pages of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just not an issue because I adopt a different persona. I'm not me. I'm, you know, whatever mask I'm wearing, whatever character I'm playing. I'm really unsure how I'll fare without my top on in this next show that I'm doing, Boy Band in the Buff, but let's see.
What is the stammer caused by then? Because some people, you said it's incurable, so that means that there's actually something, there's an issue.
Yeah, it's certainly a kind of mindset thing. It's actually based upon fear, and you know, we have to sort of retrain ourselves. And you know, if you're scared of heights, for instance, what's the best thing to do? To go to the highest building, and eventually you'll get close to the edge.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:49. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, today, GB News' very own legend, Patrick Christys, has been up there in East Durham, where he's been speaking to members of the community about the challenges the region faces. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by the man himself, Patrick Christys, live from East Durham, and he's joined by the retired factory worker, Ray Bellingham. Patrick, I hope you're keeping warm up there. Over to you, mate.
Yeah, just about. Not exactly barbecue weather, Martin. You can see the Union Jack proudly flying behind me there, but it's fair to say, unfortunately, this is an area that's been in decline now for some time. And I want to speak to a man called Ray, who hopefully lets us in out of the cold, who has lived in this house for more than 60 years. And he's here now, I think. Hello, Ray. How are you?
It's nice to meet you, Patrick.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me on. Can we come in?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Right, now Ray's going to show us in. And Ray, what I was hoping to do is have a bit of a chat with you about how you've seen the area change, really, and what you make of it all.
Well, the area's changed quite a bit over the years. I mean, I've lived here for 6 years and I've seen lots of changes. It's ever since the Labour Council left and the colliery closed, I beg your pardon, and then Labour was in charge at the time. A lot of the colliery houses and the people, with the colliery closing, the people moved on to find other work, and council had the chance to buy houses up to refurbish them, and they declined that, even though they were offered for £1 each, and they did not buy the houses.
Oh my gosh!
Exactly.
Right.
So
people moved out of the area. The sense of community went. Then I take it, and then now a lot of these houses are boarded up.
Sadly, they're boarded up, and of course, a boarded up house never looks pretty. And that's why we were looking for refurbishment for the houses and to try and get them all done up. There's lots of, obviously, lack of social housing nowadays, and that's what we need. We need more social housing.
Well, it seems ridiculous there's a lack of social housing here because there are so many empty houses literally on this road. But can I ask you, Ray, what are the most important issues for you facing the country right now? What do you care most about?
I suppose it's more than anything else. I know it sounds a bit obvious thing to say, but for me, community itself within the communities, and that's the most important thing. People's communities seem to be breaking up a lot nowadays, and there's a tearing down of places where the community's not there any longer. This place was a lovely place to live one time. I've lived here 60 years, and I would never ever dream of moving, because in certain aspects there's still small pockets of community that are there for each other.
Can I just quickly get us to pan round, because Ray, you have got a fabulous setup here, mate. Yeah. I mean, I bet this was a bit of a hub, was it, back in the day? The in-home bar for our radio listeners?
Party Central.
Party Central.
Yeah, it's Party Central at one time. My mother was the barmaid, literally in life, and also at home as well. She loved being.
She brought her work home with her.
She brought her work home with her. Yeah, she was the singing barmaid actually, because she was known as the singing barmaid. Oh. So and she loved that bar. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, gosh. Well, look, thank you very much for having us round. Ray and I are going to spend a bit longer chatting because, obviously, I've got my show from a good boozer. We could have just done it here, actually, Ray, to be honest with you. We could have just done the show here.
I'll open a cake for you, yeah.
Open a cake for me. Well, I better not. But you never know where that might end, I'm afraid, Ray. But, look, we're going to be talking a bit longer because I want to drill down as to some of the main issues that are taking place here in this area at the moment. And the political landscape here is fascinating. It's been a Labour seat for, I think, 76 years, I'm right in saying. It is now, there's a 94% chance it's going to go reform. So I want to really understand why a lot of working class people are thinking of voting reform. Ray's actually got a quick thing. So you do actually feel a little bit let down, do you, by the Reform Council here so far?
I do, because they said they were going to introduce a lot of changes. They haven't done it since they've come into power.
Right, well, there you go. Well, we're going to talk about that. Look, it's a really, really fascinating case study, this. And up next, by the way, I'm going to be going to Durham University to see whether the kind of woke students there echo the good salt of the earth people like Ray's views about what really is important in this country.
Well, Patrick, I suppose you get a very different take from the wokerati on campus. But look, can you please pass my regards and my thanks, my respects onto Ray for allowing us into his wonderful front room. Now, these are the people that built our nation. These are the people that sort of stand up for our nation, and they want community. They want to belong. They want work. They want values. So many communities all across the country are just like that. It's wonderful reporting. Let's make sure we have more of that on the show later on. Coming up next, more hoo-ha about the Sir Jim Ratcliffe controversy. I'll be joined by Richard Tice in the studio. He says Sir Jim is right. That's next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours, and as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy, but much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow, whereas in the south it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills, and it could for a time even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine, some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday, widespread frost again. It could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. We'll cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A90 westbound at Myerkirk roundabout, lanes are restricted after a crash. In Cumbria, the M6 northbound at junction 38 is shut in both directions following an accident, with recovery expected by 20 to 7 this evening. In Lincolnshire, the A46 southbound between the A57 and the A1434 is closed after a collision, likely to ease just after 20 past 6 tonight. On the M5 northbound between junction 11 and junction 9, heavy congestion is adding around 40 minutes. And on the trains, Northern and South Western Railway report major disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our 2-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a stonking show. Here's what's on today's menu. Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has caused a massive storm of controversy by claiming Britain is being colonised by immigrants.
The UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK has been colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, Keir Starmer has helped to force a partial apology from Sir Jim for what the Prime Minister described as offensive language. But does Sir Jim have a point? Is Britain being colonised? And actually, should it be the Prime Minister himself who is apologising to the British public?
A little while you'll be seeing I'm suing the BBC for putting words in my mouth, literally. They put words in my mouth.
And it's back on. Donald Trump's libel case against the BBC is to go to trial after a US judge rejected the BBC's attempt to delay that lawsuit over claims of defamation. We'll have all the very latest in the case of Trump versus the BBC.
We do want to bring down those barriers so that things that are made in Britain can be sold in the European Union.
And today, Rachel Reeves has been accused of once again betraying Brexit by admitting that Labour's biggest prize is closer ties with Brussels. But current negotiations on youth mobility, food standards and energy are considered a so-called first base. Is Britain on the road to rejoining the European Union? And a Green councillor has been slammed after she got her grandchildren to send Valentine's cards to unvetted male asylum seekers at the Crowborough barracks. On today's show, I'll be joined by a local Tory MP who called the move disturbing and highly irresponsible.
Why can't we get people who are unemployed to be doing some litter picking in return for getting paid their unemployment benefit?
And a fed-up Brit is on a one-man mission to clean up Britain. He's come up with a novel idea. Let's make people picking up benefits pick up litter and stop their dosh if they refuse. Now, common sense solution, or is it a load of old rubbish? Well, I'll be joined in the studio by John Reid, a.k.a. Mr. Clean Up Britain, later in the show. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Well, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has put the cat amongst the pigeons, that's for sure, by saying Britain is being colonised by immigrants. But does he have a point? Well, Sir Keir Starmer says it's offensive. Who cares if you're offended? You offend people by refusing to apologise to anybody for the rape gang scandal in Britain. People are offended by you saying a woman can have a penis. We're all allowed to be offended, but actually, it's a true problem, the political class, the total and abject failure of every Prime Minister, not just Sir Keir Starmer, all the way back to Tony Blair, to fail to control our borders, denying us any conversation around immigration. When we tried to vote for it in every election, we were ignored. In the Brexit referendum, ignored. Every time we tried to talk about it, we're called racist and offensive. It doesn't work anymore. Actually, maybe the people that should be apologised to the great British public isn't Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and every Prime Minister before him for betraying the British public on immigration. I'll be joined in the studio by Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, to have a conversation about that. Get in touch with your views. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. You can use the QR code on your screens. But now let's have your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 minutes past 4. Well, the top story this hour, Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has now apologised after saying immigrants had colonised the UK. The billionaire said he was sorry his language had offended people both in the UK and across Europe. Downing Street has since said it is right that he's apologised and described the remarks as offensive and wrong. The killer of 12-year-old Leo Ross has been named after a court lifted an order protecting his anonymity. Cian Moulton, who was 14 at the time, stabbed Leo in the stomach as he walked home from school in Birmingham in January 2025. Now aged 15, Moulton was sentenced to a minimum term of 13 years at Birmingham Crown Court after pleading guilty to murder last month. Leo's death shocked the local community and has reignited concerns about youth knife crime. Well, following the Brent school attack, the government has now unveiled a new child knife crime plan. Under the proposals, every child caught carrying a knife will now be referred to youth justice services and could be forced into mentoring sessions. Knife carriers may also be required to remain in education or training in a bid to cut reoffending. The Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, spoke about it this afternoon.
Well, speaking to young people themselves, they've benefited from the turnaround scheme and the money that we put in to turn their lives around. Speaking to the young people, many of them are in the care system. But the important thing to do is if a young person is found carrying a knife, it's important that there's a referral from the police to youth services within a day, and that young person is being held, that there's action to deal with the causes that has led to that young person carrying a knife, so they do not go on to continue to do that.
Breaking news in the last hour or so from the United States, where a $10 billion defamation lawsuit brought by the US President Donald Trump against the BBC, we now know will go to trial in February 2027. Mr. Trump has claimed a 2024 Panorama documentary falsely edited his January the 6th speech to suggest he encouraged supporters to storm the Capitol. He's called that broadcast false and defamatory. Well, the BBC has sought to have that case dismissed. They're arguing the Florida court lacks jurisdiction and are insisting it will be vigorously defending the claim. We are also hearing just some breaking lines from the Financial Times. In the last few minutes, the BBC set to cut hundreds of millions of pounds, up to a tenth of its costs over the next 3 years, in a move likely to lead to fresh job cuts. Staff being told that at the BBC in a conference call held by the current and outgoing Director General Tim Davie earlier this afternoon, following that confirmation that the trial from Donald Trump will go ahead in 2027. In other news this hour, a nursery worker described by a judge as utterly wicked has been jailed for 18 years after sexually abusing children in his care. 45-year-old Vincent Chan admitted 56 offences, including making the most serious category of indecent images. He will also spend a further 8 years on extended licence. The Met Police called the case one of the most harrowing and complex investigations it's ever handled. Well, breaking news in the last half an hour. We've heard that more than 1.4 million NHS workers across Britain are set to receive a 3.3% pay rise from April. The government announcing in the last few minutes. And Health Secretary Wes Streeting says ministers have listened to the workforce and understand the frustration when pay awards are delayed. The increase will apply to doctors, to nurses and a number of other health staff across the service. The move comes as the government faces continued pressure over staffing levels, morale and threats of strikes. Well, that against a backdrop of UK economy growth of just 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. The ONS saying December also saw growth of 0.1%, while November's figure has been revised down to 0.3% to now 0.2%. The Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride says high taxes on businesses are killing growth and keeping inflation and interest rates higher than they otherwise would be. But the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, says she's confident that the economy is turning a corner.
Crucially, GDP per head of the population has increased over the last year after falling in the previous Parliament. The 6 cuts in interest rates means that people with a mortgage are going to be paying a bit less than they were before, around £1,400 less for somebody getting a new mortgage or renewing a mortgage. We're creating the conditions for growth by returning stability to the economy and bringing in investment. Is there more to do? Absolutely, but we've created the conditions of growth and I'm confident that this will be the year that we see the results of that.
You're up to date. That's it from me for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Martin.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Sam. Now, the billionaire businessman and the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has sparked a huge debate, having said that the UK had been colonised by immigrants.
You can't afford you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, the UK has been colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, a huge storm kicked off and the Prime Minister waded in. Keir Starmer criticised the comments by posting on X, where he said, offensive and wrong. Britain is a proud, tolerant and diverse country. Jim Ratcliffe should apologise. Well, earlier today, following that pressure from the PM and elsewhere, the Manchester United co-owner released a statement saying this: I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the United Kingdom and Europe. Some people, but it is important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration. Now, to which the Prime Minister's spokesman said it is right that Sir Jim Ratcliffe apologised for his offensive and wrong comments. But was this not the same Prime Minister who's previously said this?
The previous government were running an open borders experiment. We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
Well, sure, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Well, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has also waded into the debate.
And then you look at parts of London, for example, where the road names, the underground signs, aren't just in English, they're in a foreign language as well. 1 million people living in this country don't speak any English at all. 4 million people living in this country barely speak passable English. And that's the point that he was making, that big areas of our towns and cities have been changed into something completely different to what they were.
Well, let's have a ding-dong about this. I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political editor Chris Hope and also the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Gentlemen, welcome. Richard, I'm going to start straight with you. Is Sir Jim Ratcliffe right? Is Britain being colonised by immigrants?
He said two key things. He said that the population had grown from 58 million to 70 million. He's bang on the money. He also said that we couldn't afford large-scale, uncontrolled immigration if people are not working when you've got 9 million people, give or take, out of work on benefits. On those two things, he's absolutely right.
He wasn't. The numbers, it was wrong, wasn't it?
No, that's completely wrong.
The timescale was wrong. The timescale was wrong. It was wrong.
Everyone knew what he was trying to say.
2020 in 5 years, it's wrong.
Chris, everyone knew what he was trying to say. In the last 20 or so years, the population has increased from 58 to 70 million people, the vast majority of which is external immigration into the country with no democratic mandate from the British people. And we can't afford millions and millions of people on out-of-work benefits. We need to get people back into work. Now, some people have been offended by the use of the word colonised. Frankly, the people who should be apologising is the Westminster elite, that whenever someone uses a slightly hurty word, they try and smear them and label them and shut down debate. And that's what this Prime Minister utterly disgracefully did. The same Prime Minister, by the way, as you showed, said that we risked becoming an island of strangers. And we all want smart, sensible, highly skilled, highly qualified people who want to come and enjoy the privilege of living in the UK, integrating, contributing to a community, and working and speaking the language. But in many areas now, there are hundreds of thousands of people who do not speak a word of English.
Yes, OK, but the PM has said he wished he hadn't said the Island of Strangers line. He said if he held that speech up to the light, he wouldn't have said it, so he resiles from that. You know jolly well that Jim Ratcliffe says in 2020, 12 million more people have come here. It's since 2000. No, that matters because that's the idea of the overwhelming.
Chris, that is pathetic. That is the Westminster literati.
It's the truth.
Chris, people in the pub talk about the fact that the population has dramatically increased. It is, people do misspeak on the media when they're not used to speaking much in the media. And of course he meant in the year 2000, when that's what the population... And for you to nitpick around that...
It's the facts. It's not nitpicking.
Frankly, it's juvenile. In the pubs, on the touchline, that is what people are talking about.
You're being ridiculous. You're not accepting what you said. The facts are wrong. He needs to correct the record. He has
Get out of the Westminster bubble and go and talk to real people, because that's what they talk about. And occasionally, real people will use the word colonised, because in a sense, they're just telling it as they see it. Stop being so offended, stop being so wet and pathetic, and tell it as it is. The population's increased from 58 to 70 million people, and the country is not growing at all. We're absolutely
over 26 years, Richard.
OK, let's get out the semantics of the timescale and let's look at some data. Let's look at some data, because is there any factual basis in Britain changing rapidly? The answer is yes. Let's get the data on the screen now. This is census data going back to the 1970s. Look at the top towns in the United Kingdom on your screen there now. You can see that Slough, which is the least diverse town in Britain in terms of its white British population, has gone from 74% white British in 1981 to 24% now. That is a trend repeated across Leicester, Luton, London, Birmingham, Manchester, Wolverhampton and Coventry. It's one-way trend, and diversity has never been queried as something that we should be perhaps challenging in terms of immigration. Let's move on now to social housing. There's no better way of exemplifying the fact that our towns are being occupied by people who are getting free housing than social housing. Let's get to that now. Right, there we can see this is Leicester. Leicester, 80.4% of the social housing in inner city Leicester goes to people born overseas, and only half of them are in work. This is repeated across other towns and cities. Let's get to the next one if we could. We have Birmingham. Look at that, 69% of social housing occupied by a head of house who was born overseas, only half of them in employment. Let's get to the next town. We've got Oldham, even more, 68.5% of people in social housing in that area of Oldham born overseas, only 33, a third of them are in employment. And finally, I think we have London. London, look at it, that's a heat map of giveaway Britain. The amount of houses occupied by people born overseas is astonishing. And when you look at the highest areas, Paddington, West London, such as Brent, 72% of all social housing given to people who are born overseas. Richard Tice, when you look at that, you can argue about the word colonising, you can argue about whatever you like. The facts are the facts. Britain's towns are changing irrefutably, inexorably, and if you complain about it, you're shut down.
And congratulations to you and GB News for showing the data so clearly that proves evidence-led data clearly showing how towns and cities across the UK have changed enormously. And I come back to this great point about people came here, supposedly, we were told, to work. But that data clearly shows that many people are being subsidised, sometimes getting ahead of the queue, to live in social housing, not to work. And the British people, not unreasonably, saying, it's not fair. If people are going to come here, please work. Chip in, do your bit, contribute to your local community.
Richard Tice, you'd also like to talk about the GDP figures out, say, the state of the economy.
So this morning, 0.1% growth in the 3 months to December, the same as the 6 month from July to December. That's not growth. It's barely a round of drinks, frankly. And GDP growth per person, because of high-scale immigration, we're now in recession. We are in a recession, GDP per person. The last 2 quarters, both negative. Funny how that's not on the mainstream news, and that's because of the policies of this woeful, incompetent Labour government, and yet we're borrowing £150 billion over the last 12 months. We're in danger of going not only skint, but going bust at this rate.
And I wonder, actually, if these two conversations are interlinked, because we were told repeatedly the answer to the engine room of our economy is just to let more and more people in, who work, who pay taxes.
The clue's in the word work. But it comes to the reality, as you've just shown in that great data, they are not working in large numbers, and that's just not fair. It's unacceptable.
What would you do if you became the Chancellor of the Exchequer? There's a big reshuffle next week, we expect on maybe Monday or Tuesday from your leader, Nigel Farage. You're tipped as maybe a future Chancellor. You're on here talking about the economy. That's you bidding for that job, clearly. If you became Chancellor, because the Treasury drive it, you talked to Swella Braverman, she tells you that the Treasury drive the need for migration to keep the economy ticking.
Well, actually, so the Treasury have driven the quest for high immigration, but the Department of Welfare and Pensions is the one that's been guilty of allowing welfare payments, which are tax-free, by the way, to increase too much, which has reduced the incentive to work for too many people, and it's the welfare that's got a major problem.
I need to interject because I've got some breaking news for you on the Jim Ratcliffe story, and it's this. Manchester United have just posted on X, and they've said this: Manchester United prides itself on being an inclusive and welcoming club. We will continue to represent our people, our city and our fans with purpose and pride. And the statement has been released by Manchester United as well. And it says, as I said there, Manchester United prides itself on being an inclusive and welcoming club. So there we go. They seem to be contradicting the words of Sir Jim Ratcliffe there, do they?
Here's the point. We as a nation pride ourselves on being inclusive and welcoming. But it's not unreasonable to those who have the privilege of coming to live in the UK, actually, folks, we would like you to chip in. Do your bit. Work hard, set an example to your children, contribute to the community, and in order to do that, you need to learn to speak the lingo. And please don't expect large-scale benefits paid for by Alarm Clock Britain, who've been here for decades and decades, working their backsides off. I don't think it's unreasonable. It's about fairness, and the British people, we are about fairness.
Richard Tice, thank you very much for joining the studio today. Appreciate your time. Chris Hope, excellent as ever. Coming up after the break, a $10 billion lawsuit for defamation has been... Oh, we're doing it now, actually. A $10 billion defamation lawsuit has been brought against the BBC by the US President Donald Trump and has been set for trial in February 2027. A Florida judge has ordered in these past few hours. Now, Panorama faced criticism, of course, last year over an episode in 2024, given the impression that Mr. Trump had encouraged his supporters to storm the Capitol building in 2021 when nothing of the sort actually happened. Let's now speak with the author of Can We Trust the BBC? And that's Robin Aitken. Robin, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. Well, the BBC did their damnedest to try and get this trial snuffed out before it got anywhere near the court. It looks like the BBC is on a back foot.
Hello, Martin. Yes, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, I thought initially when this first arose, this court case that Trump was bringing, the BBC really should have stepped back and made a fulsome apology, by which I mean a grovelling apology, and satisfied Mr. Trump in that way. Because what's happened today is that the Florida court has said that the trial can go forward, and it'll be next year, in fact. So it's a year before the thing would come to trial. The BBC is still hoping that the case will be dismissed in another case, in another hearing, which is happening next month. But the chances are that this will now go forward. And the problem for that, for the BBC, is that the costs involved here could be really quite colossal. And there's no way of knowing, really, at this point, just what the costs are going to be. And that's leaving aside, I don't mean the chances of, I mean, I think the £10 billion Trump lawsuit is a figure plucked out of the air, really. He's not going to get $10 billion in damages. But the problem is, what's this going to cost the BBC in legal fees? It could be an astronomical sum. And remember, you know, all those fees are paid for out of licence fees.
Well, they'll be paid, will they not, by the BBC's insurance indemnity policy, which will probably be taking a bit of a battering. But on a more broader point, Robin Aitken, isn't it not just about the money? It's about the process, it's about the punishment, it's about the prospect, the terror for the BBC of having every email, every piece of communication, this entire sorry saga being thrown to the public for them to see. The BBC will have its dirty laundry aired. You guarantee there'll be disparaging comments in all that chain of communications about Donald Trump. They don't want that to happen. Donald Trump knows that they don't want to happen. So in actual fact, he's probably trying to trammel them towards a situation where they just pay up to make this go away.
Yeah, well, I agree, actually, that, you know, the reputational damage, the possibility of reputational damage for the BBC here is quite great. That, as you say, there'll be a lot of information which comes to light, and a lot of it is not going to be very pretty. The problem for the BBC, I think, was this, that it was a question, it came down to a question of institutional pride. They did not want to give an apology which made it plain that they had been completely in the wrong about this. And let's put this in context. The thing is that the point at issue is this Panorama programme. But anybody who consumes the BBC or has been consuming the BBC since 2016, when Mr. Trump was first elected, will know that there has been an inherent bias against Trump in almost everything that the corporation has broadcast. Yes. And the point is that I am sure that Trump and his advisors know full well that the BBC has been presenting Trump at every possible opportunity in the most negative and unflattering light.
I think you're absolutely right, Robin Aitken. Robin, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. We're running out of time. We've got so much fitting today. But look, thank you very much for your time. Author of Can We Trust the BBC, Robin Aitken. Thank you very much for your time. Coming up next, we'll be discussing this.
So we do want to bring down those barriers so that things that are made in Britain can be sold in the European Union.
Well, Rachel Reeves has been today accused of betraying Brexit by admitting that Labour's biggest prize is closer ties with Brussels. Well, Labour dragging us back into the European Union, one step, one treaty at a time. That's next on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's 4:28. Now, earlier on today, Rachel Reeves announced that the government wants to create more opportunities for British businesses by encouraging trade with the European Union. Take a listen to what she said.
Growth will come from giving more opportunities for British businesses to sell what they produce all around the world. But half of our exports go to countries within the European Union, and the botched Brexit deal has meant that it is now more expensive to sell what we make in Britain into France and Germany and Poland and Denmark. That makes no sense at all. And so we do want to bring down those barriers so that things that are made in Britain can be sold in the European Union, creating growth, creating productivity, and crucially, creating jobs, including for young people here in Britain.
And well done to Catherine Forsell there for getting a question out of Rachel Reeves. We have to fight very, very hard for the Labour Party to speak to us, so thank you to Labour HQ. Let's now speak with the Public Affairs Manager at the European Movement, Joe Mahan. Joe, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Joe, a lot of people have suspected since the beginning of this regime, actually before the beginning of this regime, that actually they'd like to jump back into bed with Brussels. And Rachel Reeves has said this week she's up for closer ties with Europe and surrender of sovereignty on youth mobility, food standards and energy are the first base. They won't give us another referendum because they wouldn't get the result they wanted, but are they really just taking us by baby steps closer back to Brussels?
Well, I think let's look at what she has actually said, because what stood out to me, frankly, was the pragmatism. She's just recognising an economic reality that Europe remains our biggest trading partner and our closest neighbour. Personally, I think Britain would be economically much stronger with a much closer relationship. But the government has been clear that it is not rerunning Brexit. What they are doing is taking a practical approach to making our current relationship better, making it, as you heard from Rachel herself there, jobs, growth and investment.
Well, when will that happen? When the economy is flatlining today, job unemployment is up, taxation is up, stagnation is up, and don't blame Brexit for that. It's the same across the European continent. And I would like to point out to you, Joe, we can still trade with Europe. We're still neighbours with Europe, but Europe isn't the European Union. We voted to leave.
We voted to leave the European Union. We didn't vote to leave the single market or vote to leave how Brexit. We voted to leave the European Union, and what way that worked out. And what she's proposing is something closer to what you would look at as Theresa May's deal.
Which was rejected by the electorate and was terrible and almost finished off the Conservatives. And the same would happen if the Labour Party tried to bring it in.
Well, possibly, but we'll see what will happen in terms of the economic effect of that of a closer relationship with the EU.
But in what way? Because a closer deal with the European Union on things like youth mobility means we take a lot more people in than go to the European Union from our countries. Food standards hammers our farmers because they're forced to use pesticides and comply with standards that Brussels implies. We have no say. That's the exact opposite of sovereignty. And energy means that we have to pay fixed tariffs. There's no such thing as a free lunch with Brussels. And if we want to be more aligned, they're going to want things out of us, Joe.
Of course they are. That's how trade deals works and how sovereignty works, is you make good trade deals for your country. If you look at from the National Bureau of Economic Research in the United States, we're 6%, our GDP is 6% lower than if we'd continued being a member of the European Union or in the single market. That has had an effect. Yes, there can be certain aspects that you can mention where we possibly it's a trade deal's a deal. At the end, you have to give to take. This government is being pragmatic and they're looking for the best thing to drive growth, to help business and to help the economy, and that is through closer relationships with the EU.
But Jed, the problem with the deals that keep being proposed by Rachel Reeves, Brussels, is that it comes with strings attached. We've done a trade deal with America, but it doesn't involve having to take hundreds of thousands of young people into our labour market. We don't have to do all of that. But it just seems that if we want something out of Europe, they say, well, youth mobility is a red line, and this government rolls over.
Well, we haven't rolled over. We've discussed the possibility of youth mobility. I mean, it's something that could help UK students and EU students come here. Is that something we're fundamentally against?
Well, we've got enough students. There's £4 billion worth of loans going to foreign students, half of which are never repaid. We don't need more students. The universities might want more students, but we don't need them as an economy. And I put it to you again, Joe, that many, many more students will come into Britain, putting strain on housing facilities than we will ever send to the European Union nations. So it's one-way traffic.
I'm not on here to talk about immigration of students in particular. It's about what has been proposed by Rachel Reeves, which is stronger economic ties with Europe. You know, that is one aspect of it. And we don't even know exactly how that would look. She's been very open and very non-specific about how pragmatic conversations with Europe, our largest trading partner, is a sensible way forward. I think that's very clear, and I think most people would admit, and no matter how you voted in 2016, this isn't a rerunning of Brexit. This is trying to make our economy grow and make things work and make our current deal work.
Well, a lot of people feel like it's not a rerunning of Brexit, it's ignoring Brexit, it's rowing back on Brexit, bit by bit by bit, without giving people a say at a referendum. But look, we've got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us on the show. I appreciate your time, Joe. I really do. Thank you for joining us today on GB News. Lots more still to come between now and 5 p.m, including Patrick Christie is on the ground. He's out and about in East Durham, hearing from the locals about crime, jobs, community, and whether promises of regeneration will deliver anything in their area. We'll be heading there live. Been magnificent reporting so far. Can't wait for that. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours. And as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy. But much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow. Whereas in the south, it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills. And it could, for a time, even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine. Some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday. Widespread frost again. It could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. We'll cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A90 westbound at Myerkirk roundabout, traffic is restricted after a crash. In Stockton-on-Tees, the A19 northbound between the A67 and the A174 has a broken-down vehicle, with one lane closed and delays of 20 minutes. In Cumbria, the M6 northbound at junction 38 is shut in all lanes following an accident. In Lincolnshire, the A46 southbound between the A57 and the A1434 is also fully closed after a collision. And on the trains, Northern and South Western Railway report major disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back to the show. Now it's time now for our great British giveaway and your chance to win a £10,000 luxury holiday for two and 30 grand in tax-free moolah. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. So whether you're looking for hotel comfort or on a relaxing river cruise, you'll be able to find the perfect match from over 30 global destinations on offer. And because the holiday is handpicked with you in mind, you know it's going to be perfect. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Your summer can start here, so make sure you don't miss out.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, good luck with that. Now, new figures from the Office for National Statistics out today. They show that the UK economy grew by a meagre 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. And take a listen to what Rachel Reeves had to say to GB News earlier today.
Numbers today show that the economy grew by 1.3% last year, a higher growth than the year before, and GDP per capita increased by 1% last year after falling in 5 years under the previous government. So we are growing our economy, we're bringing down the cost of living, £150 off of people's energy bills from April, freezing prescription charges and train fares, continuing with the bus fare cap, all of those putting the money in the pockets of ordinary working people so they've got more money to spend in their high streets, in their local area.
Now, while Rachel Reeves celebrated the UK's position as the fastest growing G7 in Europe, Kemi Badenoch criticised the overall subdued growth. Well, GBNews' chief political correspondent Catherine Forster was with the Chancellor earlier on today, and she joins me now in Westminster. Catherine, welcome to the show. A brave face being put on is the best way I can describe that there from Rachel Reeves. We've had economists on the show, actually, who say GDP per capita shows we're nudging towards a recession.
Yes, a very brave face. I was down in Sussex with the Chancellor, who was at BT Openreach. They're announcing £5 billion of investment into broadband. And she was all very smiley. They were taking pictures with the staff. But we haven't seen very much of Rachel Reeves lately, have we? I feel that she's kept a very low profile, and certainly, despite all the smiles that we've had today, she's looked terribly gloomy sitting on the front bench next to the Prime Minister and PMQs the last few weeks, as have, to be honest, most of the Cabinet, given the crisis that's been engulfing the government. And also these figures, yes, of course, she's put a positive spin on it. But the reality, as you said, Martin, and I think this is what matters to people, is people want to feel that things are getting better. And for the last half of last year, in fact, per capita, things were getting worse. And growth overall, yes, they had good growth, I think, in the first 3 months of last year, but 0.1%, I mean, barely anything. And this is a government, of course, that used to say we won't need to raise taxes too much because all the money's going to come from growth.
Fantastic stuff. Now, on to another story today. The Liberal Democrats have previously said that they would never, ever get into a coalition with the Conservatives ever again. But could they work with them regarding those delayed or even cancelled May elections, described by some as a denial of democracy for 4.5 million Brits? Well, to get more reaction on this, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by the Liberal Democrats MP, Alison Bennett. As well, of course, I'm still with Catherine Forster. Alison, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. And may I say, straight away, I want to shake your hand, I really do. Liberal Democrats, I've been saying all along on this show, hats off to you for wanting these elections to go ahead in May. Our viewers totally agree. Democracy, we can't get enough of it. So hats off on that front. Tell us about how you're trying to work with the Conservatives to make sure that those elections take place.
So the Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey, has written to Kemi Badenoch asking her to get her Lords, who are currently debating what happens with these delayed elections, to instruct them to support what's called a fatal motion. And basically that would kill off the secondary legislation that's in the Lords at the moment, and that would make sure we get to vote this May.
And what this means, so Catherine Forster, for people who don't understand what a fatal motion is, it's where you're trying to work together. Ed Davies written this letter, we can see here, saying, "Dear Kemi, I'm writing to urge you to instruct your peers in the House of Lords to back the Liberal Democrats' fatal motion. As you yourself rightfully pointed out, people need their democracy." He's got a point, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. And this is an exclusive that's been given to us at GB News, because obviously you particularly, Martin, we've been championing these local elections
100%.
Going ahead. And worth looking at the 29 areas that have delayed these elections, 4.5 million people not able to vote this year, 2.5 for the second year running. 21 of those are Labour, about half a dozen are Conservatives. But of the Lib Dems, somehow or other, the Lib Dems are managing to go ahead with about 13 of theirs and only needing to postpone one, which is Cheltenham, which begs the question. And I think what's happening here is Sir Ed Davey is saying that the Lib Dems have been fighting tooth and nail and saying to Kemi Badenoch, as you pointed out, and then quoting Kemi Badenoch's own words back at her. So he says, as you yourself rightfully pointed out, people need their democracy. They want to have a chance to vote for their local representatives. This delay should not be happening. So saying, Kemi Badenoch, ask your Tory lords to join with us, the Lib Dems and the Lords, this fatal motion that the Lib Dems are going to put forward. If the Conservatives supported it, that could force these elections to go ahead.
Well, James cleverly has told us before, I want these elections to go ahead. But the problem is, of course, the Conservatives have cancelled elections in 6 areas. Alison, are you confident that Kemi Badenoch will put politics to one side and do the right thing?
Based on past performance, no. But, you know, the ball is in her court, so let's see what she does. I am one of those people that's been denied the right to vote last year, and it looks like, again, this year. I'm a Sussex MP. I'd love to vote. And I think in an age when trust in democracy is going down, the government being able to cancel elections on a whim is terrible, and it just further erodes that loss in trust.
I think you're absolutely right, and all of our viewers, by the way, will be agreeing with you. Can I ask you a question? How come the Liberal Democrats seem adept and ready to roll and throw those elections, but the Labour Party seems to be particularly challenged when it comes to throwing it? Is that because they fear they might get a good hiding?
I think you might be onto something there. I mean, they have done so badly in the last 18 months. At the beginning of the week, when we were wondering whether Starmer was about to resign, it's like, how did they get to this point in 18 months with a massive majority? It's just beggars belief, doesn't it?
Well, I want to say hats again. Honestly, seriously, hats off to Liberal Democrats for doing this. We totally agree. More elections. Let's have more and more of them. Thanks for coming to the studio today. Appreciate your time. That's the Liberal Democrats MP, Alison Bennett, and, of course, Catherine Forster. Thank you for giving the exclusive to me on the 3 till 6. Now, for inserting some holiday sun, here is the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The trouble is, I get so busy when the Winter Olympics come round, and I'm so busy travelling everywhere and doing interviews that I don't actually get a chance to watch the Olympics myself. But I do catch a little bit here and there. But it's nice to know we're doing, pretty well so far.
The big air, because I mentioned that, I kind of thinking that maybe if that had been an Olympic sport back in '88, that may well have suited you even better, because you were a skier and then got into ski jump. And I'm thinking of the tricks, and that's how you started doing all that stuff.
That's right. At Gloucester Ski Centre, I was using the bumps on the natural profile of the hill and doing lots of tricks and jumping over people and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, big air could have been a sport for me, or ski cross, where you got your racing because you're going down a racetrack type thing and going off these jumps as well. So there's plenty of more modern sports that I think would have suited me better than ski jumping 38 years ago. But I'm still glad I did my ski jumping all those years ago.
Eamon, how much of a hero do you think Eddie Edwards is?
Well, at the start, Eddie, I thought, what's this guy doing here? What a waste of time, whatever. And then I realised how hard you fought. The big changing point, I think, for you, Eddie, was the film. You know, people seeing your life and how it came about and the real story, and I think that got everybody at your side. And certainly, from my point of view, you gained my total respect.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I was amazed when Readly, the magazine and newspaper app, got in touch with me last week and said, you know, even though you took part 38 years ago, you're in the top 3 most memorable Winter Olympic moments, which is really nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We've got some breaking news for you now, and there is more chaos at the heart of number 10. Chris Hope, our political editor, is here to break the story for us. Chris, what we got?
So Chris Wormold is the most senior civil servant in Whitehall. He has left this moments ago in that job. He's been held it in a very short period for 14 months. He's the Cabinet Secretary. He has resigned by mutual consent. It is the third major resignation from the top of government in 4 days. To recap briefly, Morgan McSweeney, Chief of Staff, he went on Sunday. Tim Allen, the Director of Communications, the top PR guy there, he went Monday. And now Thursday, Chris Wormold has gone. Now, who's appointed in December 2024? Normally, Cabinet Secretaries hold those jobs for 9 years. He's gone after 14 months, Martin.
OK, so another bureaucrat bites the dust, another body goes under the bus. Why should we care?
We should care because this points to a complete dysfunction at the top of the government. There's been briefing about him not being energetic enough or not willing to try and push the agenda which the Prime Minister wants to do. Clearly, they've reached a point where this relationship is not working. This does not happen. This guy's been there in the Whitehall for 35 years. By my count, he is the shortest-serving Cabinet Secretary ever. This is a humbling moment for him and for Keir Starmer. This is a relationship that should have worked. This is the important relationship between, frankly, the top of the elected political leaders running us and the top of the civil service. 400,000 people, they connect through that relationship. That relationship has fractured. It's a very embarrassing moment for the Prime Minister, I think, and for the head of the civil service. They've got to find a new one. They've appointed 3 people to take the role as things stand. Catherine Little, Dame Antonia Romeo and James Bowler.
The Queen of Woke, she's been called.
She has been called the Queen of Woke. She, so by that you mean she's pushing the agenda of the trans community agenda and the like. There are concerns out there about that record at other roles she had in Whitehall. See how that plays out. And we are told that there will be a formal appointment process through the first Civil Service Commissioner. Why this matters to viewers and listeners is further indication of a deeply dysfunctional top of the government. We saw it last week when the Cabinet, on Monday, when the Cabinet were wheeled out to say the PM had their support.
You know, Chris, there seems to be a lot of resignations going on. Someone's resigned. Have they resigned or they had the chop? And more to the point, have they got the chop because they're trying to find a scapegoat? They're trying to blame somebody for the fact the country is going down the toilet, and rather than the Prime Minister carrying the can, they're blaming all these petty bureaucrats.
It is interesting that all the advisers are going, but the senior players, the politicians, remain where they are. We are told, though, they leave by mutual consent. I should remind you, at midday today, when we asked the PM questions, we were saying to the spokesman...
And yes, got full confidence.
Well, no, we said, is he in post? Is he in charge? And the spokesman couldn't say so. So we thought this was coming in. Now it's been announced. But very difficult. No Chief of Staff in number 10, no Director of Communications, and no Head of the Civil Service. A lot of jobs going. Martin, which one will you go for?
None of them. I've been much better in here, just pointing out the fact that it's just an absolute clown show. It seems to be falling apart around our ears. No direction, no plan, and we were promised an end to all of the chaos. Chris Hope, superb, thank you as ever. Now, coming up in the next hour, including more on that major government resignation and are we being colonised in Britain? Stand by for a monumental ding-dong. That's next here on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours, and as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy, but much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow, whereas in the south it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills, and it could for a time even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine, some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday. Widespread frost again. It could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. Will cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A90 westbound at Myerkirk roundabout, traffic is restricted after a road traffic collision. The M4 westbound is slow from junction 23A at Mega to junction 26 at Malpas with heavy congestion. On the M6 northbound at junction 38, all lanes are closed following a crash, with normal conditions expected around 8 this evening. In Lincolnshire, the A46 southbound between the A57 and the A1434 is shut after an accident, easing around 7 tonight. And on the trains, Northern and South Western Railway report major disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. It's GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a cracking show for you, and here's what's on your menu. Breaking news in these past few moments. Sir Chris Wormold will stand down as the UK's top civil servant and the head of the civil service, marking yet another significant resignation from a government that seems to be simply falling apart before our eyes. We'll have all the very latest on this from our man Chris Hope. And the Manchester United owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has caused a storm of controversy by claiming that Britain is being colonised by immigrants.
The UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause. It'll cause. Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, Keir Starmer has helped to force a partial apology from Sir Jim for what the Prime Minister described as offensive language. But does Sir Jim have a point? Is Britain being colonised? And actually, should it be the Prime Minister who is apologising for refusing to control our borders? And a Green councillor has been slammed after she got her grandchildren to send Valentine's cards to unvetted male asylum seekers at the Crowborough barracks. On today's show, I'll be joined by a local Tory MP who called the move disturbing and highly irresponsible.
We get people who are unemployed to be doing some litter picking in return for getting paid their unemployment benefit.
And a fed-up Brit on a one-man mission to clean up Britain has come up with a novel idea. Let's make people picking up benefits pick up litter, and stop their dosh if they refuse. Now, common sense solution, or is it a load of old rubbish? Well, I'll be joined in the studio by John Reid, who they call Mr. Clean Up Britain. That's all coming up in your next hour. More chaos at the heart of Downing Street in these past few moments. Another top civil servant has resigned. Did they resign or were they pushed? Is it just another body under the bus of a government that's seeming like it's swerving off the road and is totally out of control? Remember how Keir Starmer promised to turn a page on chaos? Seems this government is defined by nothing but chaos. Plus, Sir Jim Ratcliffe put the cat amongst the pigeons by saying Britain is being colonised by immigrants. Stand by for the mother of all ding-dongs. People on one side of the debate, people on the other, having a huge row on the show. That's what we're all about. Do you think that the country is being colonised? Do you think the words are offensive? Who cares if you're offended by words? How about speaking the truth? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Or you can use the QR code on your screens right now. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good evening to you. Just after 5 o'clock. Well, the top story this hour, that breaking news emerging that the UK's top civil servant is set to step down after just 14 months as Cabinet Secretary. Downing Street says Sir Chris Wormold's decision was mutual as Sir Keir Starmer moves to reset his operation following recent controversies. The Prime Minister thanked Sir Chris for more than 35 years of public service, saying he was very grateful for his support over the past year. Sir Chris took up the role in December of 2024, succeeding Simon Case, and was previously the Permanent Secretary at Health and Education. Well, his departure comes amid reports Dame Antonia Romeo could take over, though Number 10 has at this stage refused to comment on speculation. Manchester United says it remains an inclusive and a welcoming club after its co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe apologised for saying the UK had been colonised by immigrants. The billionaire said he was sorry his language had caused offence in the UK and across Europe following a growing backlash. Downing Street says it's right he's apologised, with the Prime Minister's spokesman calling the remarks offensive and wrong. Well, we've been hearing from some Manchester United fans outside the stadium today. They've condemned Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments.
It's a very irresponsible thing to say. He knows what the political and social climate is like nowadays, and it just feels like trying to stoke the fire.
The person it's damaged the most is Jim Ratcliffe. Man United will never die, as they say.
For him as the owner to go and say that is obviously not very representative of what the views would be amongst the fans, I would like to think.
The government has unveiled a new child knife crime plan following the Brent school attack. Under the proposals, every child caught carrying a knife will be referred to youth justice services and could be forced into mentoring sessions. Knife carriers may also be required to remain in education or in training in a bid to cut reoffending. A $10 billion defamation lawsuit brought by the US President Donald Trump against the BBC will go to trial in February 2027. Mr. Trump claims a 2024 Panorama documentary falsely edited his January the 6th speech to suggest he encouraged supporters to storm the Capitol, calling the broadcast false and defamatory. Well, the BBC has sought to have the case dismissed. They're arguing the court in Florida lacks jurisdiction, and they're insisting it will vigorously defend the claim. Ukraine's Vladislav Hereshkevich has been disqualified from the Winter Olympics after wearing a helmet honouring Ukrainian athletes killed in the war with Russia. The International Olympic Committee says competition must remain politically neutral, adding there are more than 130 conflicts currently worldwide, and it cannot allow statements on all of them during events. His team, though, says it will appeal. President Volodymyr Zelensky has also condemned the decision, saying it plays into the hands of Russia. Hereshkevich is standing by his decision, though, and says he has done the right thing. Let's take a listen.
I'm defending my rights. I didn't violate any rules. So, yeah, I stand for what I believe is right. I spent hours of trainings every day for 4 years, going through the whole of the world, competing in all the World Cups, to be able to be here today to compete on Olympic Games, on the biggest event of the 4 years, and I was disqualified, and I cannot understand even why.
And more than 1.4 million NHS workers across Britain are set to receive a 3.3% pay rise from April, according to the government today. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says ministers have listened to the workforce and understand the frustration when pay awards are delayed. The increase will apply to doctors, to nurses and other health staff across the service. The move comes as the government faces continued pressure over staffing levels, morale and strike threats. Those are the latest headlines. Now plenty more with Martin.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Breaking news for you now, and it's this. The Cabinet Office have announced that Sir Chris Wormold will stand down as the UK's top civil servant and the head of the civil service, making another significant government resignation this week in what it seems to be a government defined by bedlam and chaos. I'm joined in the studio by GB News presenter Chris Hope. Chris, another resignation. The bodies keep on falling from the Labour Party bus. Who is Chris Wormold, and why should our viewers care?
Well, he's a very, very senior civil servant, the most senior civil servant, been one for 35 years. In the same way, with the Prime Minister is known to us as the most senior politician, he's the most senior civil servant delivering what the PM wants. That relationship between Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister and Chris Wormold as a Cabinet Secretary is absolutely vital for getting things done, and that clearly hasn't been working. By mutual consent, this partnership has broken. He was appointed on the 16th of December 2024. He's now gone on the 12th of February 2026. Barely 40 months after being appointed. Those jobs are normally, not always, normally for 9 years, a long time you're in post. Normally you can see out one PM, a new one comes in. It's very rare this happens. I make him the shortest serving Cabinet Secretary ever, or at least certainly for the past 100 years when I was trying to count them up earlier. Now we're told by Chris Wormold, he says an honour and privilege to serve the PM. Sincere thanks to colleagues, etc. and so forth. Keir Starmer equally pays tribute to his 35 years service. But what this means is it's an indication of the dysfunction at the top of our government. Sunday this week, the Chief of Staff quit, Morgan McSweeney. Monday, the top person in charge of all the briefings, the top PR person, Tim Allen, Director of Communications, he's gone. Thursday, the top civil servant delivering on the PM's agenda, he is gone. There are 3 big jobs now going unfilled at the top of government, and that will define how we see this government. And it's so important that Keir Starmer gets the next appointment right.
Is this a case of, let's make this a movie metaphor, is this a case of the sharks are swimming around the Labour Party boat and they're chucking bodies overboard to satisfy the bloodthirst, the lust of the electorate? In actual fact, Jaws wants the captain of the ship. Jaws wants Keir Starmer. He wants to leap on board and take out Keir Starmer. And these bodies being thrown overboard, they won't matter. The captain of the ship is who should be sinking.
I think the fact that people you've never heard of are losing their jobs, albeit very important jobs, is indicative of problems at the top of government.
Yeah, but my point is, no one's really heard of this guy. No one knows what he does. It's another bureaucrat, a faceless Whitehall bureaucrat, and that's precisely the point. What we want is to see the captain sinking. People want to see the Prime Minister taking responsibility, not just throwing these bodies overboard.
He's not connecting, Martin. We know that about Sir Keir Starmer, and he's got to make himself connect. Part of that is showing the country he can deliver, but him to go is extraordinary. We had a lobby briefing earlier with the PM's official spokesman, at which point they couldn't say if he was in charge or not. I should say, while we've been speaking, there's been further noises off from those who may challenge Sir Keir Starmer to be Prime Minister.
Burnham and Rayner
up in Liverpool. Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham, by all accounts, criticising the government's raid on businesses, business tax raid on pubs. Angela Rayner saying she's talked about the challenges of business rates, VAT, minimum wage going up, all the issues we know have been talked about on the channel affecting the companies and affecting how hard it is to pay to hire somebody, frankly. She now appears to understand that. She wants to look at something called the intersectionality of all these challenges and relieving some of them. Well, to stop bringing in policies that hurt business is one argument. But Andy Burnham, of course, Greater Manchester Mayor, not an MP, but tipped to be someone who could challenge for leadership. He says that he would argue that for a VAT rate more consistent with what you find in Europe, because the social value of those businesses is not being recognised properly.
On manoeuvres, the sharks are certainly circling. And thank you, Chris O, as ever, the best jaws in the business. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the billionaire businessman and the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has sparked a huge debate, having said that the UK had been colonised by immigrants.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK's being colonised. It's costing too much money. It'll cause. Well, the UK's being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, it all kicked off, and earlier on today, following the pressure from the Prime Minister and elsewhere, the Manchester United co-owner released a statement. He said this: "I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK." Some people in the UK and Europe, probably means the wokerati. But it is important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration. And who can disagree with that? But in light of Ratcliffe's comments, Manchester United have posted a statement on X. And they're stating that the club prides itself on being inclusive and welcoming. But does Sir Jim have a point? Has Britain been colonised? Has the country changed forever? And actually, the people apologising, should they be the Prime Ministers who've allowed all of this to happen? It's time for a ding-dong. And let's join my guests now. I'm joined by the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates, and also the political commentator, Fahima Mohammed. Welcome to you both. Rob Bates, I'm going to start with you. Was Sir Jim Ratcliffe right?
I think he was. We've seen a rapid transformation in this country. There are now areas in our big cities and towns that have seen the culture, institutions, traditions just absolutely replaced. And when you consider that 1 in 25 people living in this country now arrived between 2021 and 2024, when you consider actually that we have British institutions that just perpetuate this lie that Britain was built by immigration, when you consider that we've got 1 million people in this country that speak little to no English, or half of social housing in our capital city is headed by someone that was born overseas, or the very fact that the British state abandoned hundreds of thousands of white working class girls to Pakistani rape gangs because they were concerned about offending newcomers. I really have been flicking through the dictionary trying to find a term that best describes what we are seeing in this country, and I really am stumped apart from what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has presented.
Fahima Mohammed.
Well, I think what's important here is that even Jim Ratcliffe has now apologised for the language he used, and that matters because the word colonise isn't neutral. It's historically loaded. It implies takeover, subjugation, loss of sovereignty, and that simply isn't what is happening in Britain. If he apologised for causing offence, that tells you something as well. It tells you that the wording crossed a line. And I think that the problem in this debate is that some people inflame their own emotions with dramatic language. They use words like colonise or replacement because it feels powerful, not because it's accurate. Immigrants working in our NHS, running small businesses, paying taxes, or playing in our Premier League are not colonisers. They're part of the workforce and the economy, and Britain sets its own immigration rules. Parliament decides the numbers. That is sovereignty. So if we want to debate migration levels, integration policy, or public service pressures, let's have that conversation seriously. But calling it colonisation is historically wrong, economically misleading, and frankly disrespectful to millions of people who contribute to this country every single day. Colonisation is simply not simply not people moving from one country to another.
Guardian and Sky News were getting on his nerves, and he probably could do without the headache. But this mass migration that we have seen was never actually done with the consent of the British public, and I think tens of millions of people around this country will be agreeing with the sentiment that he was trying to put forward. And I think it's really sad that yet again this debate has been completely sidetracked because people are more concerned with the etymology of a word than actually talking about some of these real pressing social issues. As I set out, the Pakistani rape gangs, people are being absolutely silent as we're hearing an endless drop of some of these horrific crimes that have been committed. And as for the economic argument, we've got 1.3 million foreign nationals claiming universal credit. About 1 in 3 people with indefinite leave to remain are claiming universal credit. That's about £10 billion a year. We see billions of pounds more being taken out of the British economy in remittances. A tiny fraction of those that arrive every single year, less than 1%, are actually doctors. So, these myths about the economics and social benefits of mass migration are really the big edifice that needs to be pulled down if we're to be serious about talking about this issue.
Isn't that the point, Fahima Mohammed? It's like the left, the left always seems to try and close down any debate we want to have by saying, oh, I'm offended by words like colonisation or swarms or whatever the word is at the time. And Sir Keir Starmer has demanded that Sir Jim Ratcliffe apologise. Sir Keir Starmer's never apologised to the thousands of white British girls raped by Pakistani men. Never. How can we have to apologise for a word, but a Prime Minister doesn't apologise for this systemic industrial-scale sexual abuse by immigrants? I mean...
Nobody agrees with anyone being a paedophile, a groomer, or anything like that. It does not matter where you come from. They are all despised. How many times do people need to apologise? And there should be more investigations about that. That's not the issue.
Keir Starmer hasn't apologised once. That's my point. He's demanding Sir Jim Ratcliffe apologise over a word, but he hasn't apologised for the historic abuse of all those girls. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but that's a separate issue. Right now, we're talking about colonisation and replacement, and change is not the same thing as replacement. Britain has changed many times in history. Industrialisation changed it. The Irish migration changed it. The Windrush generation changed it. Change does not mean Britain has become colonised. Colonisation means political takeover and loss of sovereignty. That's not happened. We are debating here, if we want to debate immigration levels, integration policy, like I said before, is different. I mean, institutions have been haven't been completely replaced. Which institution? The Parliament, the judiciary, the monarchy, the armed forces, the police? Absolutely not. Whether you see people in certain areas, whether it's in Tower Hamlets or in Surrey, they're all following the same law and complying by the same rules.
They're not.
So there's no takeover here.
Capital of Europe. We have parallel societies.
It's the same as the Jewish Council. I'm sorry, you're just picking on one particular group and you just want to demonise everyone.
Fahima, let Rob talk. Thank you.
This incessant need to peddle this lie that Britain was built by immigration. And, you know, the left have been very, very keen to talk a lot about the term colonisation. We've got to decolonise the countryside, decolonise milk, decolonise trains, all this kind of guff. So if you want to actually talk about the use of a word, it is your side of the argument that has completely stripped it of its initial meaning when it came to the 19th century.
OK, we have to call time on this magnificent ding-dong. Thank you to you both. Fahima Mohammed, I'm calling time. Beautiful stuff. And Rob Bates, thanks to both of you. Look, a spirited debate the way we love it here on the channel. Let's part as friends. Thank you both. Now, moving on, pupils, beg your pardon, will now be allowed to change their gender at school, according to guidance published by the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillips. And wow, the guidance confirms that although teachers must consult with parents, they should ultimately accept a child's request to socially transition. Well, joining us now to discuss this is the Executive Director of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. Maya, I'm gobsmacked. Over to you.
It doesn't actually say that. We think this guidance is quite a big step forward. What it says is that schools and teachers should listen to children, but they should do what's in the child's best interest, and that often that is not what the child requests. So although there are issues with the guidance, we think it's a big step forward. It says that no child should be allowed to use opposite-sex toilets, opposite-sex changing rooms, dormitories if they go away on school trips, and they shouldn't be allowed to play sport as the opposite sex. So a lot of the things that a child might want to do in terms of social transition are just redlined out. And then it says that the school should have a policy and should treat the child with care and consideration also for other safeguarding concerns. So I think this is a step forward, and it's good that it's part of the statutory safeguarding framework, so that it's treating these children like every other child, not as a special case.
OK, so just to clarify, because this kind of just took me by surprise, this has just come at me in real time, this story. The concern historically was that some children were being encouraged and allowed to change gender at school without parents knowing about it, but that's now changed, so the parents must be informed. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know what change gender means. No child can change sex.
You know what I mean.
A child can cut their hair, they can change their name, they can, you know, a girl can wear trousers, a boy can wear a skirt. They haven't changed sex. When it comes to rules within school about where you treat boys and girls differently, the important thing is that you remember who the boys are and who the girls are. And so it doesn't say that children can change their sex. Well,
because that's impossible. Yeah, we all know it's impossible to physically change your sex. But I'm just trying to clarify the story. So they're allowed to transition socially, but
I mean, this is
this is confusing.
It is. That's what's confusing. It says a child may ask to socially transition, and then the guidance doesn't say what does that mean, but it does say a lot of things that school must say no to, which is good. We've been waiting for this guidance for 8 years, and there's been various drafts of it under several different governments, and some of these drafts have said things like a girl could go to a boys' school as a boy and must be treated as a boy, and it would be misgendering and harassment to recognise they're a girl. This guidance doesn't say that. It says that safeguarding means you have to recognise what sex every child is, and that's a big step forward.
Good stuff. Thank you for helping to clarify that in real time. I appreciate your clarity of thought and for gifting me the grace of knowledge. Thank you very much. That's the Executive Director of Sex Matters there, Maya Forstater. Thanks for your time. Coming up next, we'll be discussing this.
But we do want to bring down those barriers so that things that are made in Britain can be sold in the European Union.
Yeah, Rachel Reeves has been accused of betraying Brexit by admitting that Labour's biggest prize is closer ties with Brussels. Are Labour dragging us back to the European Union one baby Brussels step at a time? This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You have the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 5:26. Now, earlier on today, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, announced that the government wants to create more opportunities for British businesses by encouraging trade, of course, with the European Union. Let's take a listen.
Growth will come from giving more opportunities for British businesses to sell what they produce all around the world. But half of our exports go to countries within the European Union, and the botched Brexit deal has meant that it is now more expensive to sell what we make in Britain into France and Germany and Poland and Denmark. That makes no sense at all. And so we do want to bring down those barriers so that things that are made in Britain can be sold in the European Union, creating growth, creating productivity, and crucially, creating jobs, including for young people here in Britain.
Now, if that sounds to you like a reverse ferret on Brexit, join the club. Let's now speak with the former Conservative member of the European Parliament, David Campbell-Bannerman. David, always a delight to have your company. We suspected it, didn't we, all along, that as soon as the Party got into power, one by one, they'd allow Brussels to scurry through the cat flap. And I'm getting vibes here of a closer alignment with Brussels.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disgrace. It undermines Brexit. It's a betrayal of Brexit. I'd love to know what their Red Wall MPs think of this. You know, Joe White got quite a number, 40, 50 MPs signed up. They've been thrown under the bus by Rachel Reeves and everyone else commenting, Lammy and Streeting. They all, I mean, the game is just to appeal to the metropolitan hardcore of Labour. And they're all jockeying for position, whether leadership or senior positions. And you know, they've forgotten what they were elected on. They said they wouldn't get involved in customs union or indeed the single market.
You know, the words are so telling that Labour is up for closer ties with Europe, and current negotiations over youth mobility, let's be honest, that means that far more Europeans come to Britain than Brits go to Europe. Food standards, of course, that means that farmers must comply with all kinds of things like carbon footprint, fertiliser standards, all the rest of it. And energy tariffs, which we know what happens there, they turn the power off, we don't agree. That's just the first base. So the clear direction of travel here is that they want to give away more power and more sovereignty.
I mean, when you look at how the EU is doing, I mean, it's arguing amongst itself over immigration, over defence. I mean, the France falling out with Spain and Germany today. They've just got a fraud inquiry in the EU Commission. The Belgian police just went in today. I mean, the EU is not a great model. And why do we want to get closer? We want to be independent, do our own thing, and take the opportunities in the world. And this is really backward thinking. It's almost 50s thinking, going back to how wonderful Europe was and the EEC was. It really isn't helping, Martin.
The thing that I don't understand about closer trade deals, we can do that. We've done it with India, with America, with a multitude of nations. But in return, we don't have to give them fishing rights as well. We don't have to allow hundreds of thousands of Americans or Indians to stream into our country if we do a trade deal. It seems to me there's always bells and whistles attached to these Brussels deals.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're talking about giving away £12 billion of fish for no good reason. It was all part of the defence fund, which we're now being blocked by France, or the cost is too high. This reset is becoming a bit of a joke, and we have to ask serious questions about the benefits of this. As you rightly point out, I mean, the India trade deal, I worked on the EU-India trade deal and the trade committee, and it's taken about 16 years to negotiate. They finally got it, but it came after Britain, and we've only been negotiating about 4 years. So much for the great power of the EU's market. We came first, and we got a better deal with India, which is very valuable, and we throw that away. We joined the customs union. Frankly, all these cabinet ministers need a A-level course in trade, because they're all incredibly ignorant about the real impact of trade. They don't understand it. It is complex. It took me a long time to understand it, but they don't understand it. They're making basic mistakes, like Lamy going on about Turkey benefiting from the customs union. It's not in the customs union. It's only in for goods. And, it's a low-cost country, which is why it's benefiting. So that is not a model for Britain.
Well, David Campbell-Bannerman, it's always a pleasure to have your company. It's been way too long. I'll see you again soon, my friend, former Conservative MEP, David Campbell-Bannerman. Thank you very much indeed. Now, if you're travelling home from work or from school today, especially in this rain, please, as I always say, be safe. And here's your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A8 at Carnbro, eastbound slips are shut, so follow the signed diversion. The A4042 southbound from Turnpike roundabout to Crown roundabout is closed after an earlier crash, with diversions in place. Worcestershire's M5 southbound between Junction 7 and Junction 8 has one lane blocked after a collision, clearing just after 6 this evening. The M1 southbound between Junction 4 and Junction 1 also has a lane shut after an incident, easing after 6. And on the trains, South Western Railway has major disruption from London Waterloo, and Great Western Railway reports delays on multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Very good evening to you. 5:30, the top story this hour. The UK's top civil servant is stepping down as Cabinet Secretary after just 14 months in the role. Downing Street says Sir Chris Wormald's decision was mutual, as Sir Keir Starmer is reshaping his operation following recent controversies. The Prime Minister has thanked him for more than 35 years of public service. Manchester United says it remains an inclusive and welcoming club after co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe apologised for saying the UK had been colonised by migrants. The billionaire says he's sorry for causing offence. Downing Street has called his remarks offensive and wrong and says it's right he's apologised. Donald Trump's $10 billion defamation lawsuit against the BBC will go to trial in February 2027. He claims a Panorama documentary falsely edited his speech on January the 6th. The BBC says it will be defending the case. Ukraine's Vladislav Herashkevich has been disqualified from the Winter Olympics for wearing a helmet honouring athletes killed in the war with Russia. The IOC says competition must stay politically neutral, but his team is set to appeal. President Zelensky says the move plays into the hands of Russia. And here, more than 1.4 million NHS workers are set to get a 3.3% pay rise from April. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says ministers have listened to the workforce amid ongoing pressure over staffing, morale and threats of strikes. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you for the 6 o'clock news.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours. And as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy, but much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow, whereas in the south it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills, and it could for a time even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine, some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday, a widespread frost. Again, it could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. Will cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's 5:37 and it's time for the Great British Giveaway now. Your chance to win 10 grand, a luxury holiday for two, and 30 grand in tax-free moolah. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. You wouldn't need to treat yourself to a holiday, as we're also going to treat you to the perfect getaway too. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from, which means you could be exploring the wonders of Egypt on a Nile River cruise, or find yourself on a grand tour of Japan, in New Zealand, even enjoying the wonders of India. But you've got to be in it to win it.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now get this, the Green Party councillor Anne Cross has raised eyebrows across Britain as she shared at a recent county council meeting that she has tasked her grandchildren with writing Valentine's cards to illegal immigrants. Anne Cross said in a statement, "My grandchildren and I painted some cards, Valentine's cards, at the weekend, which we are going to be presenting to the men in the camp in Crowborough as a welcome." What on earth is she thinking? Let's now speak with the Conservative MP for East Grinstead and Uckfield, and that is Mims Davis. Mims, welcome to the show. You know, when I first saw this story, I didn't actually believe it was true, but apparently it is. On what planet is it a good idea to write Valentine's cards to unvetted men who came here on dinghies?
Well, it's frankly morally repugnant behaviour. I'm loath to get involved in how people grandparents or parents as a Conservative, but as someone whose constituency already has the Crowborough camp backing onto it, obviously it's in Nusrat Ghani's constituency, my constituent's already affected. The area such as Uckfield and the town affected, it's a very rural area, very wooded. We are absolutely aghast. I also have the Copthorne Hotel, which now is predominantly single adult male. I think parents are already worried in my part of the world and in the Crowborough area, and parents are already worried about safeguarding with walking to and from school. So how can this councillor, an East Sussex County Council, an elected official, think that it's okay to paint Valentine's cards to give to strangers, let alone undocumented ones? I think it's highly disturbing and highly irresponsible. And I'm glad you're covering it, because frankly, people need to know that the Green Party are not a bunch of lovely, nice people who care about the environment, bunny huggers. They're clearly absolutely sustaining people in their ranks who think this kind of behaviour is suitable. And bear in mind, the Wealden co-leader who shares the leadership with Lib Dem James Partridge, Councillor Partridge, is Councillor Rachel Millwood. She is the deputy leader of the Green Party, and one needs to know what this woman's views are, because this is frankly abhorrent.
Well, we know that her view is that she didn't want this encampment in her constituency. Isn't it funny how the Green Party are refugees welcome, except when it's at the end of their garden? So there's a dichotomy there. I think it's worth pointing out that, of course, the Green councillor Anne Cross isn't here to defend herself. She may well have thought this was a well-natured thing to do and a welcoming thing to do. We simply can't tell. But on a broader point, this camp, the barracks in Crowborough, was never consulted. Nobody wanted it, and it's been repeatedly pointed out that it simply backs onto people's back gardens. The men were smuggled in under the cover of darkness in the middle of the night. Mims Davis, is there any sign of the government listening to the locals and closing it down?
Yeah, I absolutely take the broader point, but anybody encouraging painting of Valentine cards to strangers from young children, one has got to wonder about that. Look, the way that the government has acted around the Crowborough camp, this affects my constituents in Uckfield as well, and also, of course, around the Crowborough area. The way that they said they would consult and listen, they would make it safe, legal, and compliant. They haven't actively involved. I've finally secured an emergency meeting, which won't be till March, Minister responsible, with the Clerk of Uckfield and the Mayor of Uckfield to raise our concerns as the neighbouring area. My villages, such as Nutley and nearby, are also affected. And my cadets, just like Nuz Ghani, the Deputy Speaker of the House, we are affected because our cadets, and of course London and the South East, thousands of cadets, and you can see it on the screens right now, use that as a training base for evenings and weekends and summer, etc. Thousands of our youngsters' opportunities are being affected by the decision to take forward this camp that under the Conservative government, because of its rurality, because it was felt that it was unsuitable, was not progressed. Yet this Labour government has never been able to explain why it is a suitable site, and that's what we're still waiting to hear. So there are questions to answer. Look, we all want the hotels closed, particularly in Copthorne, where since the Afghan families came there, the community in my patch has done a brilliant job. But actually, patience is running out, and rural areas are not the right places.
OK, Mims Davis, we have to do there. It's worth pointing out that Rishi Sunak wanted to open similar barracks at Linton-on-Ouse and at Wethersfield, but they were turned down in the end because of overwhelming rejection from the community. But Mims Davis MP, thanks for joining us on the show. Pleasure to have your company. Thank you. Now, GB News has reached out to the Green Party, but we're yet to hear back from them. And of course, we'll give you their response once we have it. And meanwhile, the Home Office said the decision to place asylum seekers in military accommodation is just the first step in the government's work to exit hotels. Well, coming up next, I'll be joined by this fella.
Why can't we get people who are unemployed to be doing some litter picking in return for getting paid their unemployment benefit?
Yes, a fed-up Brit on a one-man mission to clean up Britain has come up with a novel idea. Let's make people picking up benefits pick up litter. He joins me in the studio next. But meanwhile, if in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The RECPD, the charity that we're here to sort of raise awareness of today, helps service men and women throughout their careers, both while they're in the army and whilst when they decide to leave the army as well. So it could help a soldier upskill themselves and sort of understanding more about their trade or their craft or whatever their speciality is within the army, or it could help a service personnel or a veteran or any of their families if they need sort of a bit of support when they leave the forces to gain an extra qualification and help them into jobs work. So it's really a sort of end-to-end sort of support.
So, Holly, in particular, because, you don't hear of so many women joining the armed forces.
Absolutely.
What made you join? What is it you love about it?
There are so many opportunities within the army, particularly adventurous training, going out and doing something that pushes you outside of your comfort zone, new challenges, the people that you spend your time with, the kind of community, the friends and the family that you build. But again, linking back to the charity, the opportunities that you can gain through additional qualifications, things that can push you forward in your career, looking beyond the army and stuff. So, yeah, essentially there are a realm of opportunities available to us throughout the army.
All of which is very important, Holly, because I'm noticing adverts at the cinema and on TV and things about it's not only, it's how you attract young people like yourselves into the forces these days. What makes it attractive and what can you leave with? What can the forces do for you? So what you can do for the forces, but what can they do for you?
So this whole charity and the wider forces in general aim to help service personnel and the community join well, serve well and leave well. You will be leaving the army with qualifications or with the ability to get qualifications, which will help you get into further employment.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, what a cracking idea this is. A one-man mission to clean up Britain. He's come up with this novel idea. How about we make people picking up benefits pick up litter and stop their dosh if they refuse? Well, campaigners are calling for job seekers on universal credit to carry out compulsory litter picking or risk losing their handouts. Now, also advocating fines for littering increased to £1,000 alongside the rollout of AI-powered cameras to help nick rubbish being thrown from vehicles and simply dumped on motorways, verges and harsh shores. Look at the state of that garbage on the streets of Britain. It looks like a third world country. One man out there trying to put this right is my guest in the studio, the founder, the MD of Clean Up Britain, John Reid. John, absolute pleasure to have you in Westminster. Let's start with the broader clean-up mission you're doing. The videos you've seen, they've had millions of hits. Lay-bys, tips, streets, looking like third world countries. You're out there to try and put that right.
Yeah, myself and a few colleagues as well, so I can't take all the credit by any stretch of the imagination. But the sad thing is, for Britain, is that we're suffering from a litter and fly tipping epidemic. We really, really are. And what we're trying to do is highlight that to people about how bad it's got, and also the solutions that we think will actually start to move the dial to start cleaning up Britain. This is an issue we don't need to have. If people start really caring about and looking after, showing some pride in our country, and that's what it deserves. That's all we're trying to do.
And you can see some of the pictures there. Some of it's from Birmingham. I mean, there's a bin strike on there over a year now. You're out there just highlighting it. And at this point, John, your users and your fans have been saying to you, well, how about getting people on benefits to get out there in a high-vis vest and help to clean up the garbage? And you've done the numbers and seems to have merit.
Well, we think so. I mean, there are 1.9 million people in Britain who are on unemployment benefit. And that's great that the country is able to look after them in times of difficulty. I think we should all be proud about that. But I think we should also say that the country at the moment, we're in a very big hole financially. As you well know, Martin, this country owes £2.9 trillion. And just to break that down, that's £42,000 for every single person in the country. Littering and fly tipping costs over £1 billion a year for local councils in Britain to clean up. We really shouldn't be wasting that sort of money.
And you're looking at Birmingham alone. I love you've done your maths here. You said if each person on universal credit did 4 hours of litter picking a month, that seems reasonable, an hour a week, then of the almost 250,000 people on universal credit in Birmingham alone, you could clean up the city in weeks.
Absolutely could. And we don't think it's asking a huge amount. I mean, 4 hours in an average month, there are 720 hours. So that leaves a lot of hours to do other things as well, yeah. And the great thing about it as well is that getting out there in the fresh air, we all know is good for you. Yeah. Getting out there, meeting other people, socialising is good for mental health. And also, we're just asking people to go to their local vicinity where they live. So they will be the beneficiaries of their actions and in cleaning up the community. So there are so many good things about it in many respects, we feel. And all we're asking is that people, everyone in the country, should be contributing one way or the other. And that's what it's all about.
You know, I often get people, I tap them on my shoulder, oh, you dropped something, mate. And they go, what? And they've dropped like a McDonald's bag or something. But you've got to be careful. Sometimes they might want to have a bit of a scrap with you. But on a serious point, you've got a 10-point action plan coming. You've got a quick minute. What's in it?
So there's automatic, what's called ANPR, automatic number plate recognition. Yeah, great idea. Every single drive-through, McDonald's, KFC, etc., there would be a compulsory need to put people's number plate printed on all their waste that they got. Yeah, if they end up chucking it out the window and it gets picked up by a law enforcement officer, it will have their number plate. Go to DVLA and they'll get a £500 fine. All right, we've got to stop it there. We could talk all night, but I'm about to take you for a well-earned pint. John Reid, a.k.a. Mr. Cleanup, thank you for your time. Always an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming down to see us today from Warwick, here in Westminster. Now, up next, somebody who never talks garbage, just the queen of primetime debate, Michelle Dewberry. What's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. Well, of course, I do indeed want to look again at that Jim Ratcliffe stuff, but there's so much more that we need to discuss. At what point should a parent become in part responsible criminally for the crimes that their children commit? An awful story that I'll share with you later on is the reason why I want to ask you about that. Also, Giorgia Meloni in Italy. Why is she allowed to involve the Navy when it comes to stopping these migrant boats? But apparently, we can't even discuss that, heaven forbid, here in this country. We'll discuss it at 6.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours. And as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy, but much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow, whereas in the south it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills, and it could for a time even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine, some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday. A widespread frost. Again, it could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. Will cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Eastbound traffic on the A720 in Edinburgh is restricted following a vehicle breakdown in lane 1. The A4042 southbound is closed between the Turnpike and Crown roundabouts due to an earlier accident, with a diversion route implemented. In Cumbria, both directions of the M6 northbound at junction 38 are shut down after a collision, with recovery efforts expected to conclude around 9 this evening.